All right, let's dive into Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry.
Yeah, it's quite a read.
It really is. We're going to be pulling out some wisdom about, resilience and hope and how to navigate this crazy world that we're living in.
Definitely.
But, we want to make this really practical, right? We're going to focus on things that I think are going to resonate with you guys out there, especially if you're interested in learning new things quickly, or maybe you're fascinated by different perspectives, or you just love those aha moments, like those moments where something just clicks,
It's really about taking those personal stories that she shares.
Oh, yeah.
And turning them into broader principles you can use in your own life.
Exactly.
For instance, she's got this one story about her dad and his struggle with MS.
Oh, yeah, that was a powerful one. And what really struck me was it's less about the physical limitations, what MS does to you physically, and more about how that experience shaped her view of how to deal with the world when you're carrying something that you just can't control.
Absolutely. And it's something so many of us can relate to, right? Whether it's, because of your race, your gender.
Your background.
Your background, yeah, yeah. Or just personal challenges. Anything that makes you feel different, Makes you feel like you have to put in that extra effort just to exist, to move through the world.
Yeah. She talks about this idea of counting the steps, always being aware of the obstacles and calculating the energy that's needed to get around them.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that? You're just constantly sizing up your surroundings, planning your every move.
Oh, totally. And she's very honest about how exhausting that can be, right?
Yes.
That kind of vigilance.
Yes. Mentally, emotionally, it's a reality for a lot of people. Anyone who doesn't quite sit into that neat little box of what's considered quote unquote normal or expected.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So switching gears a bit, there's this part in the book where she talks about knitting. And it really surprised me. She talks about knitting as a coping mechanism during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah, knitting. I would have never thought of that.
Me neither.
It's a perfect example of what she calls going small, right? When everything around you feels huge and overwhelming, problems feel too big to handle. Focusing on something small, something you can actually manage. It's incredibly grounding.
I get that. It's like creating this little pocket of order and control.
Exactly.
When everything else feels like chaos.
Exactly.
But isn't there a danger in that? If we focus too much on going small, could that distract us from tackling those bigger, scarier issues that are out there?
I see what you mean. Yeah, it's not about burying your head in the sand or anything.
Right.
It's more about recognizing, we can't always be on, right? You can't always be fighting those big battles.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you need to recharge.
Right.
You need to reset. And those smaller activities, those hobbies, they can really help with that.
Okay, I'm with you. So it's like a strategic retreat, not a surrender.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Let's talk about fear. That thing that can just completely paralyze us.
Oh, yeah.
Love the story Michelle Obama shared about her childhood in gymnastics.
Oh, yeah.
She was completely inspired by Nadia Comaneci, those perfect 10s at the Olympics. And, she decided she wanted to be a gymnast too. But she quickly realized that her body it wasn't built for it.
It wasn't happening.
And you know what I loved about that story? She was so brave to admit it, to recognize her own limitations. I think that's a great lesson for all of us, Sometimes what we want to do, what we aspire to, it doesn't always line up with our strengths.
It's a tough lesson.
It is.
But it's an important one.
Absolutely.
It's about realizing that, failure, it's part of the process. It's not the opposite of success.
It's how you get there.
It's how you get there. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama, she didn't become an Olympian.
Right.
But that experience, it taught her some really valuable stuff.
Yeah.
About pushing her limits, getting past fear, learning from those setbacks.
Absolutely.
And it gave her the confidence to actually find the things she was naturally good at.
Okay, now she brings up this idea of comfortable fear.
Comfortable fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really intrigued by that. What do you think she means by that?
I think it's about, those moments where you feel that healthy fear.
Yeah.
The kind that pushes you a little outside your comfort zone, but it doesn't, totally shut you down.
Right. Right.
When her mom encouraged her to try new things, even when those things seemed a little scary, Remember she went to Princeton?
Oh, right. Yeah.
That must have been, a little daunting at first.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
That reminds me of this one time when
It's natural to feel fear, but we don't have to let it control us. We can actually use it, right? Use it as fuel to move us forward.
Maybe fear is actually a sign that we're on the right track.
Oh, I like that.
That we're actually challenging ourselves, stepping outside that safe little bubble of the familiar.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's a sign that you're growing, that you're willing to embrace the unknown.
So there's this funny little story she tells about her friend Ron.
Ron.
And Ron, every morning, he greets himself in the mirror.
Okay.
Very kindly. He says, "Hey, buddy," to his reflection.
Wait, what? Hey, buddy.
Yeah. It's so simple, but it really speaks to the importance of self-compassion. Instead of starting the day by, like, criticizing yourself.
Feeding yourself up.
Yeah. Yeah, he chooses to greet himself with kindness.
I love that.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that we all deserve a little grace.
Especially from ourselves.
Especially from ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's about changing that inner dialogue from judgment to encouragement, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And she connects this to something Toni Morrison said about lighting up for children.
Oh, yeah.
Like Morrison talked about how kids, they're looking for that spark, that joy and recognition in the adults around them.
Mm-hmm. And it's our responsibility to meet them with that light, with gladness, not criticism.
So it's like we can light up for ourselves, too.
Exactly.
We can choose to greet ourselves with kindness and compassion.
Right.
Even when we don't feel perfect.
Even when we're not feeling adequate, yeah.
And then she talks about friendship.
Oh, yeah, friendship.
And she really beautifully explores this through the story of her friendship with Danielle.
That's such a great example of how these meaningful connections can form in the most unexpected places.
Like at their daughter's basketball game.
Yeah, exactly. And how those connections, they can grow and evolve over time.
Yeah. And the importance of vulnerability and authenticity in building those strong, supportive friendships.
Michelle Obama talks about how their friendship, it deepened when Danielle shared a really personal story that she had kept hidden for years.
Yeah.
About her father being incarcerated.
Wow.
She had carried that shame and that secrecy for so long. And by sharing that vulnerability with Michelle Obama, it created a much deeper level of trust and intimacy.
Exactly.
In their friendship.
It reminds us that, real friendship, it's about showing up for each other.
Yeah.
Not just in the good times, but when things get tough too,
Yeah.
By creating a safe space for each other to share our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities.
That's where the deeper, more meaningful connections come from.
Exactly.
And isn't it interesting how she talks about friendship as a source of home?
Yeah.
Especially in a world that often feels so isolating and disconnected. She calls her close friends her kitchen table.
I love that.
Like this group of people she can always count on.
Yeah.
For support, for laughter, for a sense of belonging.
It's such a powerful image.
Isn't it?
It speaks to that basic human need for connection, for belonging, for being part of something bigger than ourselves.
She really emphasizes the importance of actively seeking that connection, putting yourself out there, being willing to be vulnerable.
Even when it feels scary.
Even when it feels scary.
Because the rewards, they far outweigh the risks,
Absolutely. Okay, we can't talk about Michelle Obama's book without talking about love and relationships.
Oh, yeah.
She offers some really great insights into her own marriage, and she highlights, the importance of working through disagreements and accepting that love, well, it's not always easy.
It's not a fairy tale.
No.
Right.
It's not picture perfect.
Right. She talks about how her early ideas about love were shaped by, romantic ideals, fairy tales, all that stuff.
Right.
Her experience with Barack, it taught her that real love, true love, it takes effort.
Compromise.
Yeah, compromise and a willingness to, to navigate those messy in-between spaces where things aren't always smooth sailing.
And she even shares a story about their first Christmas together in Hawaii.
I remember that one.
Which was a far cry from her initial expectations.
She was expecting romantic beach strolls, metes.
Yeah.
But the reality was, a little different.
A cramped apartment.
It's a family time.
Not exactly the idyllic Christmas getaway she had in mind.
Nope.
But, ultimately that experience, it revealed something really important about Barack's character and his values.
Wow.
And it strengthened their bond.
It's a good reminder that love isn't about finding the perfect person or having this perfect relationship.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to show up for each other, even when it's hard,
Absolutely.
And working together to build a life that feels real and meaningful.
I love that. She's really challenging that fairy tale notion of romance.
Yep.
And showing us what real love looks like, with all the good stuff and the bad stuff.
Yeah, messy stuff.
Messy stuff. And it's refreshing to see that kind of honesty and vulnerability, especially when it comes to something as personal as marriage.
Definitely.
She also talks about this idea of armor.
Armor.
Yeah. like
Wow.
the protective layers that we develop to, navigate difficult work environments or social situations.
Oh, right, yeah.
She talks about her experience as First Lady and how she had to manage people's perceptions of her while also staying true to herself.
That's a tough balance.
It is. Trying to figure out when to, reveal your true self and when to keep certain parts hidden for your own protection.
Yeah, especially when you're navigating spaces where you feel different, vulnerable, like she often did as a Black woman in positions of power.
Right.
She talks about how her upbringing, her experiences, they taught her to be cautious.
To count the steps.
Yeah, to count the steps, to assess, potential threats.
And that caution can manifest as armor.
Right. It's like a shield to protect ourselves from judgment.
From harm.
Yeah.
But she also talks about the importance of authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
Finding ways to let your true self shine through.
Even in tough environments.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Between protecting yourself and allowing yourself to be seen.
It's a lifelong practice, learning to recognize your own armor, understanding why you wear it, and then making conscious choices about when to, to let it down a little.
Okay. And then, of course, we have to talk about Michelle Obama's signature concept. Going high.
Going high. What's your take on that?
Well, for me, it's about choosing resilience, grace, and hope.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah.
Over cynicism, over negativity, especially when you're facing adversity or when life just feels unfair.
Yeah, it's about rising above all that negativity and choosing to focus on what's positive.
Exactly. And she has some really great stories in the book that illustrate this.
Oh, yeah, like that time when their plane hit some serious turbulence on the way to the Democratic National Convention.
Oh, my gosh.
Everyone is freaking out.
Terrified.
Yeah, but she managed to stay calm. She even joked about how she just wanted to make sure she could still give her speech.
I know. Talk about grace under pressure, right?
Grace.
She has this incredible ability to just stay focused on the bigger picture.
Even when there's chaos swirling all around her. And when she finally got on that stage, that speech, it was electric, Powerful call for unity and hope.
Yeah. She also talks about how her father's experience with MS really shaped her understanding of going high.
Yeah, he faced so much adversity, but he never let it break him.
Never let it define him.
He always maintained his grace, his dignity, his sense of humor.
Yeah.
He taught her the importance of perseverance, finding joy even in the little moments and never giving up hope.
Such a powerful role model, not just for her, but for all of us.
Absolutely.
All right, so if we had to boil down everything we've talked about so far, what did you say are the key takeaways?
I think the big one is Michelle Obama's book. It offers some really practical advice for dealing with life's curveballs with, grace and with purpose.
Yeah.
We've talked about embracing our differences, finding comfort in small moments, understanding our fears, and being kind to ourselves.
Yeah. Practicing self-compassion.
Exactly.
We've talked about friendships, relationships.
Recognizing that armor we all wear.
Yeah, and of course, going high.
Choosing hope, even when it feels easier to just give in to, frustration or cynicism.
And through all of it, there's this message that each of us, we have the capacity for resilience, for hope, for creating positive change in the world.
It's about recognizing that inner strength, and using our voices and our actions to make a difference.
And that's something we can all strive for, no matter where we come from or what we're going through.
What I find really inspiring is how she emphasizes agency, having a purpose, even in the face of these huge challenges.
She reminds us that even the smallest actions can make a difference.
Yeah.
And that we have the power to choose hope over cynicism, kindness over judgment, and connection over isolation.
It's not all sunshine and roses, though.
No.
She's very real about the hard parts of life,
Yeah.
the struggles, the disappointments.
Yeah, like when she talked about learning to manage her armor as First Lady,
Oh, yeah.
That constant scrutiny, the pressure to be perfect.
It's fascinating to hear how she handled that.
It's something a lot of us can relate to.
Yeah, especially in our work lives.
We feel that pressure to conform.
You present a certain image.
Exactly.
But even when we feel that pressure, I think it's important to remember that vulnerability, it can be a strength.
Oh, absolutely.
It allows us to connect with people on a much deeper level.
Like when she talks about meeting Lin-Manuel Miranda at the White House.
Oh, I love that story.
He was so nervous about performing for the president.
Oh, I bet.
And she could tell he was a little intimidated by both her and Barack.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But then his eyes met her mother's, And something about her expression, it just put him at ease.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful example of how these little acts of kindness and warmth can really make a world of difference. You know? Especially when someone is feeling out of their element.
It goes back to that idea of creating an environment where people feel safe to be themselves, to take risks.
To shine.
Yeah.
Michelle Obama talks about how she really made a conscious effort to create that kind of atmosphere in the White House.
To make it feel more welcoming.
More inclusive.
Yeah, like that story about inviting Danielle's daughter over for a play date.
Oh, right. And Danielle was so nervous about driving up to the White House that she got her car washed and her hair done.
Even though she knew she wouldn't be getting out of the car.
It's so relatable, right? We've all felt that pressure to make a good impression.
Oh, yeah.
And it just shows how Michelle Obama could make people feel comfortable and at ease.
Even in a setting as grand as the White House.
It all comes back to human connection, you know? Creating those moments of warmth and intimacy, even in formal settings.
It's something we can all do in our own ways.
Absolutely.
You know, we can choose to be the person who makes others feel seen, valued, who creates a safe space for them to be themselves.
And those small acts of kindness, they can really have a ripple effect.
It's true.
Creating a more positive and compassionate world.
Speaking of creating a more positive world, I think we need to circle back to going high, you know? Choosing hope and resilience over cynicism and despair, especially when we're facing adversity or unfairness.
It's about holding on to your dignity,
Yeah.
your grace, even when you're being challenged or attacked.
Right.
And remembering that our actions, they have consequences. And by choosing to go high, we might just inspire others to do the same.
She shares so many powerful stories from her own life that really show what this looks like in action, like that time with the plane turbulence on the way to the Democratic National Convention.
Oh, gosh, yes, we talked about that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how she stayed so calm and focused.
Right. And then when she finally took the stage, that speech was a powerful reminder that we can overcome even the most daunting challenges.
When we work together.
Yeah, when we remember what unites us.
She also talks about how her father's experience with MS shaped her understanding of going high.
Oh, yeah. He faced so much, but he did it with grace, with dignity.
He never let his illness define him or dim his spirit.
Right.
He taught her about perseverance, you know, finding joy in the everyday and never giving up hope.
He really was a role model, not just for her, but for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a reminder that we can find strength and inspiration from the people we love, and those lessons, they can help us through even the toughest times.
Michelle Obama also talks about learning to manage her own anger and frustration. She acknowledges those emotions, they're natural.
Of course.
But she's learned how to channel them in more productive ways.
Yeah, she talks about having a good support system, people you can talk to, confide in when you're feeling overwhelmed.
And the importance of self-care.
Right, taking time for yourself to recharge.
Yeah, sometimes I struggle with that, you know.
Oh, I get it.
Feeling guilty when I prioritize self-care. Like, I should be doing something more productive.
That's so common, but it's like she says, you can't pour from an empty cup.
That's a good one.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're running on fumes, you're not going to be effective anywhere.
And she's right. And you know what else I appreciate? How she talks about choosing your battles.
Yeah, you can't fight every fight.
No, and you can't right every wrong.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from negativity.
And focus on what brings you joy and purpose.
She's telling us to be intentional with our time and energy.
To make choices that align with our values.
Yeah.
Our goals.
And sometimes, you know, the most radical act of self-care is just saying no.
To the things that drain you.
And saying yes to the things that, you know, fill you up.
Love that.
Another big message that comes through is this idea of finding your voice and using it to make a difference in the world.
Which can feel really daunting, especially if you don't have a huge platform like she does.
Right.
But she emphasizes that we all have a voice. And it's about figuring out how to use it.
Through our work, our relationships, you know, just getting involved in our community.
But what about those of us who are still searching for our voice? Who are still trying to figure out what we want to say and how we want to say it?
She talks about the importance of finding mentors.
Oh, yeah.
People who believe in you, who support your dreams.
Yeah.
You know, that was key for her, and the stories she shares about her mentors are really powerful.
It's about finding those people who can guide you.
Yeah, support you.
Help you see your own potential, even when you doubt yourself.
Which brings us to representation.
Yes.
She talks about how seeing people who look like you in positions of power, it can be so inspiring.
It makes you believe that anything is possible.
Exactly. Like the story she tells about Stacey Abrams, remember?
Oh, yeah.
A security guard told her she didn't belong at the governor's mansion when she was a teenager.
Unbelievable.
Right. But that just made her more determined.
Wow.
And she became this amazing advocate for voting rights and social justice.
It's like those people who try to hold us back, they end up making us stronger.
Sometimes, yeah.
And Michelle Obama also talks about celebrating our accomplishments.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Acknowledging how far we've come. Giving ourselves credit for all the hard work.
It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to appreciate our progress.
Yeah. But it's so important to celebrate those wins, big and small.
It's about cultivating gratitude.
Recognizing the good things in our lives.
Remembering that we're all worthy of love, joy, and success.
I love that. And she doesn't shy away from talking about the complexities of modern life, right? The challenges of navigating a world that feels more and more polarized and divisive.
Social media, you know, how it can connect us but also isolate us.
It's a double-edged sword.
She encourages us to think about the information we're consuming, to seek out different perspectives, and to, you know, have real conversations.
Even with people who have different views.
Yeah, which can be hard, but it's so important.
It's about building bridges and finding common ground.
We all share this planet, right? We have a responsibility to each other and to the world.
And that leads perfectly into the last part of the book, where Michelle Obama talks about building a legacy of hope and purpose.
How we can each contribute to creating a more just and equitable world, yeah. Picking up where we left off, I think one of the biggest things we can take away from this book is that it's okay to not be okay.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And finding ways to deal with those tough moments, that's really important.
It's so easy to feel like we always have to be positive and strong and resilient, but she really emphasizes the importance of actually like acknowledging our negative emotions.
Exactly.
Feeling them.
You know, give yourself permission to not be okay.
To not be okay.
And she talks about how important it is to have a good support system, people you can turn to when you're feeling overwhelmed or upset.
It's like her kitchen table, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Those close friends that provide that sense of home and belonging.
It's a good reminder that we don't have to go through hard times alone.
And she talks about self-care too.
Oh.
You know, taking time for yourself to recharge.
Sometimes I struggle with that, you know?
Oh, me too.
Like feeling guilty when I prioritize self-care.
I know, it's like, shouldn't I be doing something more productive?
Exactly.
But she's right. We can't pour from an empty cup.
That's such a good point.
If we're always running on empty, we're not going to be effective anywhere.
It's like trying to drive a car with no gas.
And she's also got some great advice about choosing your battles wisely.
Oh, yeah, you can't fight every fight.
You can't right every wrong.
Sometimes you just gotta walk away from negativity.
And focus on the things that really matter to you.
Exactly. Be intentional with your energy.
Make choices that align with your values.
Yeah, and your goals.
And sometimes, like, the most radical act of self-care is just saying no.
To the things that drain you.
Yes. And saying yes to the things that energize you.
Another really important message is the idea of finding your voice and using it to make a difference in the world.
Which can feel, honestly, kind of scary.
Yeah, especially if you don't have a platform like Michelle Obama does.
Right. But she makes it clear that we all have a voice.
It's just about finding a way to use it, you know?
Whether it's through your work or your relationships or getting involved in your community.
Right.
But what about people who are still figuring out what their voice is?
Like what they want to say.
Yeah.
She talks about mentorship.
Oh, yeah.
Finding people who believe in you, you know, and support your dreams.
Mentors have been so important in my life.
Me too.
Just having those people who can offer guidance and help you see your own potential.
Even when you doubt yourself.
Absolutely. And she also talks about the importance of representation.
Oh, yeah. Seeing people who look like you in positions of power.
So powerful.
Makes you think anything is possible.
Like, she tells this great story about Stacey Abrams.
Oh, yeah. I love that story.
A security guard told her she didn't belong at the governor's mansion when she was a teenager.
Just awful.
It's unbelievable.
But that just made her even more determined to prove them wrong.
And she went on to do incredible things.
Such an inspiration.
It's like sometimes the people who try to hold us back, they just end up making us stronger.
That's a good way to look at it.
And then she has this beautiful part where she talks about celebrating your accomplishments.
Oh, yeah. Acknowledging how far you've come.
Giving yourself credit for the hard work you've put in.
It's so easy to get caught up in everything and forget to just appreciate our progress.
It's so important to celebrate those wins, both big and small.
It's about cultivating gratitude.
Recognizing the good things in our lives,
And remembering that we're all worthy of love, joy, and success.
And she's not afraid to dive into the complexities of modern life. The challenges we face in a world that feels increasingly polarized and divisive.
It's tough out there.
Yeah. She talks about social media and how it could be both a tool for connection and a source of negativity and division.
It's a double-edged sword, that's for sure.
She encourages us to be mindful of the information we're taking. Seek out diverse perspectives.
Don't just stay in your echo chamber.
And have those tough conversations.
Even with people you disagree with.
Which I know can be hard.
It is, but it's so important if we want to bridge those divides.
Finding that common ground.
She reminds us that we're all on this planet together.
We got to take care of each other.
And the environment.
It's about thinking beyond our own individual needs.
Recognizing that we're all interconnected.
Which leads perfectly into the last part of the book, where she talks about building a legacy of hope and purpose.
How we can all play a part in creating a more just and equitable world.
It's all about thinking bigger than ourselves, right? Like thinking about the world we want to leave behind for future generations.
Yeah, she really challenges us to step up.
To make a difference.
And she talks about how important it is to use our voices and our platforms, no matter how big or small.
To advocate for change, to lift others up.
And she reminds us that even like little acts of kindness, they can have a huge impact, you know? It's like throwing a pebble in a pond. The ripples spread out further than you think.
I love that analogy.
It's about recognizing that connection we all have.
Yeah, and that our actions, even the small ones, they can have a real impact on other people's lives.
Exactly. And it's inspiring to see how Michelle Obama uses her platform to fight for things she cares about.
Oh, absolutely.
Like education, healthcare girls empowerment.
Right.
You know, social justice, all of it.
And she doesn't shy away from tough conversations.
Nope, she dives right in.
Whether it's about race or gender or just the overall uncertainty in the world.
And she encourages us to do the same, you know, like to be open to those uncomfortable conversations.
To listen and learn.
Even when we don't see eye to eye.
It's about building bridges, finding that common ground.
Even when it feels really hard, which it often does these days.
It all comes back to going high, doesn't it?
It always does.
Choosing hope over cynicism, kindness over judgment, connection over isolation.
It's about understanding that we have the power to shape the world we live in.
And that even those tiny acts of courage and compassion, they can make a big difference.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the light we carry, what are you taking away from all this? What really resonated with you?
For me, it's the reminder that our stories, they really matter.
Yeah.
You know, by sharing our vulnerabilities and our experiences, we can connect with each other on a deeper level.
We create community.
Belonging.
We realize we're not alone in our struggles.
And when we support each other, we can all rise.
Beautifully said.
And she challenges us to think about how we can use our own stories to inspire others.
To lift them up.
It's about finding your voice.
Yeah.
And using it for good. You know?
Yeah.
To advocate for the things we believe in.
And make the world a little bit better, a little bit kinder.
Remember, your voice matters. And even the smallest acts of courage and compassion can create a ripple effect that makes the world a better place.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Michelle Obama's The Light We Carry.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring, and we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shining your light.
Until next time. Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we'll be looking at some fascinating ideas for success and happiness and fulfillment, I guess you could say.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah. The ideas all come from this book called 7 Mindsets for Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment. It's by Swami Mukundananda.
Okay.
What I think is so interesting is that he's got degrees from these really prestigious places in India.
Okay.
IIT and IIM.
Oh, wow.
But then,
impressive.
Yeah, but then he's also like this world-renowned spiritual teacher.
It's kind of a cool combination, right? You don't always see that, bringing together those two worlds.
Right.
You know, practical achievement.
Yeah.
But also inner peace.
Exactly. So we're going to try to distill these 7 mindsets from the book for you.
All right.
We'll also be on the lookout for connections we see between them.
Okay.
And we'll make sure to point out the things that you can actually, apply in your own life.
That sounds great.
So the first mindset is positive thinking.
Okay.
And right away, the book talks about how a positive outlook is key. Not just for happiness, but for success in your career too.
Okay.
To illustrate this point, Swami Mukundananda uses the story about King Midas.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the guy.
The golden touch?
Yeah. Everything he touched turned to gold.
Right. Turns out that's not all it's cracked up to be, though.
No.
Because he ends up miserable.
Yeah.
Because he can't even eat, like his food turns to gold.
His family.
Yeah. His loved ones.
It's awful.
Yeah.
The book calls this the trap of 99.
Okay.
Where you're always chasing like one more thing to make you happy instead of being content with what you have.
You think, okay, if I could just get that promotion, then I'll be happy.
Right. Or I just buy that.
That new car.
Yeah.
Then I'll be set.
And then you get there and you're still not happy.
Yeah, the goalposts move.
Totally.
It's a trap we all fall into, I think.
It is.
You know, we all think that way.
Yeah.
If I just have that or achieve this, then I'll finally be content.
Right. And the book highlights that true happiness isn't from chasing more. It's more about appreciating what you have
Okay.
and shifting your focus away from these external achievements.
So more of an internal sense of peace.
Exactly. And what's so interesting is that there's actually research that supports this whole idea about the placebo effect.
Oh,
you know,
I've heard of that.
Yeah. And there's this thing called remembered wellness. Right. So it turns out our minds are so powerful that simply believing in something can actually have a real impact on our well-being.
So it's like just thinking positively can actually make you healthier.
It can, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
I know.
The power of the mind.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
Staying positive all the time, it's tough.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Life is going to throw all sorts of things at us. So this brings us to the second mindset.
Okay.
Taking responsibility for our emotions.
Okay.
And this is a big one.
I can see that.
The book uses this really relatable example about like a stressful commute.
Oh, I've had plenty of those.
We've all been there. It's that feeling when everything just seems to go wrong. Like you get a call that makes you late.
Oh, yeah.
And then you hit every red light.
All the bad drivers come out.
And then you end up stuck in traffic.
The worst.
Right. And it's so easy to blame all that stuff for your bad mood.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I'm in a bad mood because of traffic.
Right. It's not my fault.
Right.
It's those other drivers.
But the book argues that when we do that, it keeps us feeling powerless.
I see.
It's like you're saying that this bad day happened to you.
Okay.
And you're just a victim of circumstance.
Yeah, you have no control.
Right.
Yeah.
But instead of feeling like that, like a passive recipient of whatever life throws our way, we can actually recognize that we have a role in how we feel.
Okay.
There's this line in the book that says, devotion is not an adjective, but a verb.
Interesting.
It's about actively creating positive sentiments.
So not just waiting for them to happen.
Exactly.
You have to work for it.
You do.
Makes you think.
It does, and it makes me think of Viktor Frankl.
Okay.
You know, man's search for meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Even in a concentration camp.
Wow.
He found that he still had the power to choose his internal response.
That's a really powerful example.
It is?
Of how, even in the most difficult situation, you still have a choice.
You do.
And how you react.
Right. You can choose to let these external circumstances dictate your emotional state.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to take ownership of your feelings.
That's really inspiring.
So we've talked about positive thinking.
Right.
And taking responsibility. But responsibility alone doesn't always fuel us to action.
Yeah, you need something more.
Right. And that's where mindset number 3 comes in, inspiration.
Right.
And what I found so interesting about this section is that the book kind of challenges a very common belief.
What's that?
That inspiration is something that you either have or you don't.
Okay.
But the book says that's not true. Instead, it argues that inspiration is situational and that most people are inspired. It's just that they might not be inspired by the things that society expects.
Well, that makes sense.
Right. Like, think about it. How many people do you know that are just dragging themselves through the work week?
I know a lot of those people.
But then they come alive on the weekends when they're doing the things that they truly enjoy.
That's so true.
That's inspiration in action.
But it might not be directed at their job.
Exactly. And that's why the book says it's so crucial to identify what truly motivates you, what lights your fire, because that's where you're going to find the energy to push through challenges.
And achieve your goals.
Right. And the book uses this amazing story about Soichiro Honda.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know,
No.
Honda's journey is incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
He dropped out of school.
What?
Yeah. He faced all kinds of rejections.
Yeah.
People literally laughed at his ideas.
Wow.
But his passion for automobiles, it just fueled him. And he ended up creating one of the biggest car companies in the world.
That's amazing.
I know. So what's so inspiring about his story is that he didn't give up. He just kept pushing.
Because he was so passionate?
Exactly. He was driven by something so much deeper than just wanting to be rich or successful.
He had a vision.
He did.
Wow.
Okay, so let's move on to a slightly trickier mindset.
Okay.
This is purity of intention.
Right.
And to illustrate this one, the book brings up this really heavy example.
Okay.
The Satyam scam.
The what?
It was one of the biggest corporate frauds in India.
Oh, wow.
We're talking billions of dollars defrauded,
Bro,
all for personal gain.
that's awful.
It is. And what's interesting is that the book uses this example to challenge our definition of success.
In what way?
Well, because you could say that the chairman of Satyam was successful.
I guess in a way.
He had wealth, he had power, all the outward signs of achievement. But the book argues that true success has to involve more than just outward accomplishments. Okay.
It's about being good, doing good, and feeling good.
I like that.
Yeah. And all of those things are interconnected.
Yeah.
And when one of those elements is missing, it throws everything off balance.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And to really drive home this point, Swami Mukundananda uses this thought-provoking analogy of a human hand that's been severed from the body,
Oh, wow.
thinking that it can thrive on its own.
That's kind of a dark image,
It is.
but I see what he's saying.
Yeah, the hand might think it's free, but it can't survive without the body.
Right.
And the book connects this to our souls forgetting their connection to something bigger than ourselves,
Okay.
to God.
I see.
And believe it or not, this ties into the modern day epidemic of stress.
Really? How so?
Well, the book explains that when we lose sight of that connection, it leads to an over-attachment to outcomes. And that's what often causes stress.
Interesting.
We get so fixated on achieving specific results that we become anxious and tense, even if we succeed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the book suggests practicing karma yoga,
Okay.
which essentially means dedicating your actions to a higher purpose and detaching from being overly focused on specific outcomes.
So you're not so worried about the results.
Exactly. And this naturally reduces stress.
That's really fascinating. And you know what's interesting is that this whole idea of detaching from outcomes, it actually aligns with some of the more modern approaches to stress management too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like ancient wisdom meeting modern science.
Right.
Very cool.
Okay, so I'm sensing a theme here.
Oh yeah, what's that?
It seems like a lot of these mindsets are about shifting our perspective.
Okay.
You know, looking at things from a different angle.
I like that.
Which leads us perfectly to mindset number 5.
Hit me with it.
Cultivating knowledge.
Knowledge is power.
It is. And to kick off this section, the book starts with this pretty funny story about a married couple.
Oh, I love a good story.
This is a good one. So this couple, they've been secretly annoyed for years. Uh-oh. By the husband's uncle who's been living with them.
Oh, no.
And each of them thinks that the other spouse is the one who wants the uncle to be there.
Oh, my gosh.
They're both assuming the other is happy with the arrangement.
So they're both miserable.
And they suffer in silence.
Wow. That's hilarious, but also kind of sad.
Yeah, it is.
But you know, it illustrates a really important point.
What's that?
We create unnecessary suffering in our lives because we lack knowledge.
Or even the willingness to communicate.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to just avoid those tough conversations.
It is.
But the book goes on to make a really important distinction
Okay.
between information and knowledge. We live in the information age.
Right.
We're bombarded with data all the time.
Constantly.
But just having access to information isn't enough.
So true.
It's about what we do with that information.
Okay.
It's about transforming that data into something useful and valuable.
Like that story of the German engineer who charges a fortune just to tighten a single screw.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
Oh, his value wasn't the act of tightening the screw. It was knowing which screw to tighten to fix the problem.
That's a great example.
Yeah, it highlights how knowledge translates to value.
Right.
And it also points to this shift we're seeing towards a knowledge-based economy.
Yeah.
Where ideas, innovation, and the ability to adapt quickly.
Those are the most valuable assets.
They are.
It makes you think about how important it is to be a lifelong learner.
Right. To constantly be upgrading your knowledge and your skills.
Absolutely.
But even with all the knowledge in the world, we still need the willpower to actually put it into practice.
Oh, for sure.
And that brings us to mindset number 6.
Okay.
discipline.
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
It can be, but I love how the book uses this really vivid image
Okay.
of a mama giraffe giving birth.
A giraffe giving birth.
Yeah, so giraffes give birth standing up.
Oh, wow.
So the poor calf drops like 8 feet to the ground.
That's a rough start to life.
I know, but here's the thing.
What?
The mama doesn't coddle the baby.
Oh, she nudges it and almost forces it to stand up,
Oh, wow.
which seems harsh, right?
Yeah.
But in the wild, there's no time for that.
You got to be able to move.
You got to get on your feet and run fast.
Those lions are hungry.
Right. So it's this powerful lesson about the importance of discipline, even from a young age.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes me think about that famous marshmallow test done at Stanford.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
The kids were given a choice.
Okay.
Eat 1 marshmallow now or wait and get 2 later.
Tough choice.
And guess what?
What?
The kids who could delay gratification,
Okay.
they ended up having much better outcomes in life.
Really?
Decades later.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's a powerful illustration of the long-term benefits of self-control.
Absolutely.
And the book even brings up this technique called ferberization.
What's that?
It's a sleep training method for babies,
Okay.
where parents basically let their baby cry for a little while before intervening.
So they're learning to self-soothe. Exactly. And the idea is that even infants can benefit from building willpower and learning to regulate their emotions.
It really challenges the idea that willpower is something you're either born with or not.
Right.
It sounds more like a muscle you can strengthen.
It is. And there's even neuroscience research that backs that up.
Really?
Yeah, our brains are actually capable of rewiring themselves.
Like how lifting weights build muscle.
Exactly. So even if we weren't ferberized as babies,
Right.
we can still train ourselves to be more disciplined.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, the book suggests starting small.
Okay.
Don't try to change everything about your life all at once.
Right.
Pick one area where you want to cultivate more discipline.
Okay.
Maybe it's getting up earlier, cutting back on sugar, or sticking to a workout routine.
Okay, one step at a time.
Focus on that one thing and build from there.
Got it.
Okay, I'm feeling empowered now.
Me too.
But we all know life isn't always smooth sailing.
Oh no, definitely not.
Even with the best mindset and rock-solid discipline, life is still going to throw some curveball.
That's for sure.
And that's where the 7th and final mindset comes in.
Okay, bring it on.
Growing in the face of problems.
All right.
This one's all about resilience.
Okay.
Embracing challenges as opportunities for growth. The book starts with this very relatable story about an engineer who's just completely overwhelmed
Oh,
by all these urgent requests.
been there.
Oh, yeah, I've been there too. It's that feeling of just drowning in your to-do list.
Yeah, you just want to shut down and hide.
Totally. But instead of letting that feeling take over, the book encourages us to reframe the situation.
Okay.
Because problems are inevitable.
Yeah, they're part of life.
They are. So it's about shifting our expectations.
So if we expect that there will be challenges,
Yeah.
we're better equipped to handle them when they come up.
Right. It's like the saying, if you're going through hell, keep going.
I like that.
Don't get stuck in the problem.
Yeah, focus on the solution.
Exactly. And I love how the book uses the analogy of hardship being like a sculptor
Oh, yeah.
chiseling away at a block of wood to reveal the beauty within.
Beautiful imagery.
It suggests that challenges, while often difficult or painful, can actually help us to grow.
They can refine us.
Right.
Help us reach our full potential.
So let's do a quick recap.
Okay.
We've got positive thinking, taking responsibility for our emotions, inspiration, purity of intention, cultivating knowledge, discipline, and growing in the face of problems.
That's a pretty comprehensive toolkit.
It is. And what I think is so amazing is how these mindsets all build on each other.
They do. It's like a journey
Yeah.
that starts with the right attitude,
Uh-huh.
then moves into action,
Right.
and ultimately leads to becoming the best version of yourself.
I think one of the key takeaways here is the power of perspective.
Perspective is everything.
It is whether it's choosing to focus on the positive, owning your emotions, or seeing challenges as opportunities to grow.
Yeah, it's all about changing how we see the world.
And that's one of the most valuable things about this book.
What's that?
It's not just about achieving traditional success. It's about cultivating a mindset that leads to genuine happiness and fulfillment.
Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want, right?
To live a life that feels meaningful and joyful.
No matter what's going on around us.
Exactly.
I love that.
So if you're feeling inspired
Yeah.
to upgrade your mental toolkit, I highly recommend this book.
Oh,
7 Mindsets for Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment.
I'm adding that to my reading list.
It's full of great insights and practical advice.
Cool.
And who knows, it might just change your life.
Or even inspire you to make a positive impact on the world.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Oh yeah, this is a good one. So this couple has been secretly annoyed for years by the husband's uncle, who's been living with them.
Oh no.
And each of them thinks that the other spouse is the one that wants the uncle to stay.
Oh my God.
So they're both like, oh, I can't ask him to leave because my husband or my wife,
they love him.
wants him here. So they're both assuming the other one is happy with the arrangement.
Wow. So they just suffer in silence.
They do. It's pretty funny.
It's funny, but also kind of sad.
Yeah,
But it really illustrates a really important point
it does.
about how we sometimes create unnecessary suffering in our own lives simply because we lack knowledge.
Or even the willingness to just communicate openly.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to avoid those tough conversations.
Totally.
But the book goes on to make a really important distinction between information and knowledge.
Right.
We live in the information age.
We do.
We're constantly bombarded with data,
All the time.
but just having access to all this information isn't enough.
What do you do with it?
Exactly. It's about transforming that data into something useful and valuable,
Okay.
turning it into knowledge.
Like that story of the German engineer who charges a fortune just to tighten a single screw.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
So his value wasn't the act of tightening the screw.
Right.
It was knowing which H screw to tighten
To solve the problem.
to fix the entire machine.
That's a great example.
It highlights how knowledge really does translate to value.
And it also points to this shift we're seeing, right? Towards this knowledge-based economy where it's ideas, innovation, and the ability to adapt quickly that are the most valuable assets.
So true. So it makes you think,
Yeah.
how important it is to be a lifelong learner.
Constantly be upgrading your knowledge and skills.
Exactly.
You got to stay ahead of the curve.
You do. But even with all the knowledge in the world,
Right.
we still need the willpower to actually, put it into practice.
Willpower, that's the key.
It is. And that brings us to mindset number 6.
Okay.
Discipline.
I know, right?
So hard.
It can be, but I love how the book uses this really vivid image to illustrate this point.
Okay, what is it?
A mama giraffe giving birth.
A giraffe giving birth.
What does that have to do with discipline?
So giraffes give birth standing up,
Oh, wow.
which means that the calf drops like 8 feet to the ground.
It's gotta hurt.
I know, it's a rough start to life.
Poor thing.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
The mama doesn't coddle the baby.
Oh.
She starts nudging it,
Making it get up.
almost forcing it to stand up.
Wow. Tough love.
Right, which seems harsh.
It does.
But when you think about it,
Yeah.
in the wild, there's no time for coddling.
Nope.
That calf needs to be on its feet and running as fast as possible because there are predators out there.
Yeah, those lions are hungry.
Right, so it's this powerful lesson about the importance of discipline,
Even for baby giraffes.
even from a young age.
Wow. I never thought about it that way.
And it reminds me of that famous marshmallow test.
Oh, yeah. The one at Stanford.
Yeah, where they gave kids a choice.
One marshmallow now.
One marshmallow now or wait and get 2 later.
That's a tough choice.
It is. And guess what? The kids who were able to delay gratification,
Right.
they ended up having much better outcomes in life.
Really? Like how?
Better grades,
Mm-hmm.
higher SAT scores,
Wow.
even lower BMIs,
No way.
decades later.
That's incredible.
It's crazy, right?
It is.
So it's a really powerful illustration of the long-term benefits of self-control.
Absolutely.
And the book even brings up this technique called ferberization.
Ferberization. What's that?
It's this sleep training method for babies
Oh, cool.
where parents will let their baby cry for a little while before going in to soothe them.
So they're learning to self-soothe.
Exactly. And the idea is that even infants can benefit from building willpower
Interesting.
and learning to regulate their emotions.
So it's not just something you're born with or not.
Right. It's more like a muscle that you can strengthen over time.
I like that analogy.
And there's even neuroscience research that backs that up.
Really?
Yeah, our brains are actually capable of rewiring themselves.
Like how lifting weights builds muscle.
Exactly. So even if we weren't ferberized as babies,
Right.
we can still train ourselves to be more disciplined.
Okay, so how do we do that? Where do we even start?
Well, the book suggests starting small.
Small steps.
Yeah, don't try to change everything about your life all at once.
Okay.
Pick one area where you want to cultivate more discipline.
Like what?
Maybe it's getting up earlier,
Mm.
cutting back on sugar,
Oh, that's a tough one.
Sticking to a workout routine.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, just focus on that one thing and build from there.
Got it. One step at a time.
Okay, I'm feeling empowered now.
Me too. But,
Yeah.
life isn't always smooth sailing.
It's not even with the best mindset and, rock solid discipline.
Yeah.
Life is still going to throw us curveballs.
That's for sure.
And that's where the seventh and final mindset comes in.
Okay, what is it?
This one is called growing in the face of problems.
Growing in the face of problems. I like that.
It's all about resilience,
Right.
Embracing challenges as opportunities for growth.
Instead of letting them get you down.
Exactly. And the book starts with this very relatable story.
Oh, I love a good story.
About an engineer who's just completely overwhelmed by this flood of urgent requests.
You been there?
Oh, yeah, me too. It's that feeling of just drowning in your to-do list.
You just want to shut down.
And hide from the world.
Yeah.
But instead of letting that feeling of overwhelm take over,
Right.
the book encourages us to reframe the situation.
Okay.
Because problems are inevitable, right?
Oh, they are.
We can't avoid them completely.
So true.
So it's more about shifting our expectations.
Okay, so if we go into things expecting that there will be challenges,
Yeah,
then we're better prepared to handle them when they come up.
exactly. It's like that saying,
What's that?
if you're going through hell, keep going.
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
Don't get stuck in the problem.
Focus on the solution.
And I love how the book uses this analogy
Okay.
of hardship being like a sculptor
Oh, yeah.
chiseling away at a block of wood to reveal the beauty within.
That's a great analogy.
Right. It suggests that these challenges, while often difficult or painful,
Yeah.
can actually help us to grow,
Like refine us.
help us to shed those rough edges,
Yeah.
and ultimately reveal our true potential.
So it's like those challenges are actually helping us become our best selves.
They are. So as we were talking about these mindsets, it made me think about something.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
Well, all of these principles that we've been discussing, like positive thinking, taking responsibility, acting with pure intentions,
Yeah,
they're all focused on individual growth, right?
that's true.
But I was thinking, what if we applied these same ideas
Okay.
to the challenges we face as a society?
That's interesting.
Because when you think about it,
Yeah.
some of the biggest problems that we're dealing with,
Like what?
poverty, inequality, climate change,
Okay.
they seem to stem from, these flawed collective mindsets.
Like greed and a lack of compassion.
Right. Short-sightedness, all of that.
Makes you wonder.
It does.
If we could shift our collective mindset,
Yeah.
could we actually create a better world?
I think so. But even on an individual level, mastering even one of these mindsets,
Yeah,
it takes real effort
it does.
and consistent practice.
It's a journey.
It is not a destination.
I like that.
And what I appreciate about this book is that it doesn't just, present these lofty ideas.
Right.
It actually provides practical tools.
Let's put them into practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it draws on both ancient wisdom and the modern science.
Yeah, it's a really interesting blend.
Vedic philosophy, psychology research, even some neuroscience.
That makes it really accessible, I think.
It does for anyone, regardless of their background or belief.
There's something in there for everyone.
And I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
So if you're ready to explore these ideas and upgrade your mental toolkit,
Okay.
we highly recommend checking out this book.
I'm going to have to pick up a copy.
7 Mindsets for Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment.
It might just change your life.
It might, or at least inspire you to make a positive impact on the world around you.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep those mindsets positive.
All right, let's unlock some serious habit hacking wisdom.
Sounds good to me.
We're diving deep into James Clear's Atomic Habits today.
We've got all your notes and highlights ready.
And we're going to pull out the absolute best stuff.
The stuff that can really make a difference.
Yeah, one of the things that really jumped out at me
Okay.
was this whole idea of the plateau of latent potential.
Oh, yeah. It's like you're chipping away at an ice cube.
Right, you're putting in the effort.
For the longest time, nothing seems to be happening.
You're not seeing those big changes yet.
Exactly. But then, boom, you hit that critical point and
So the overnight success.
suddenly everything shifts. The ice melts and...
Right, but it's not really overnight though, is it?
Of course not. It's all those consistent actions,
All those little things leading up to it.
leading up to that moment. Yeah. And that's where habits come in.
Okay,
That's where this idea of habits as votes for our future selves comes in.
this votes thing.
It's so powerful.
I'm intrigued.
All right. So every time you do something,
Okay.
It's like you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to be.
I see.
You want to be a writer. Every time you sit down and write,
Okay.
that's a vote for writer.
So like if I hit snooze every morning,
Yeah.
I'm voting for like not a morning person.
You got it.
Ouch.
And those votes add up,
Okay.
You don't have to be perfect.
Right.
But the more good votes you cast,
Uh-huh.
the closer you get to becoming that person.
It's like I'm building my own identity
You got it.
brick by brick with these little choices.
And the cool thing is you have the power to change those tricks anytime you want.
I like that.
You're not stuck.
Right.
You're constantly building and evolving.
Okay, so we've got this idea that our habits are shaping who we are.
Yeah.
But how do these habits actually form in the first place?
Well, Clear breaks it down into 4 stages.
Okay.
Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Okay.
Think of it like a feedback loop.
All right, walk me through it.
Okay, imagine you see a plate of freshly baked cookies on the counter.
Ooh, cookies.
There you go. That's your cue.
I'm already craving them just thinking about it.
That's the craving ticking in,
Yeah.
that desire, right? That
Yeah.
anticipation of how good those cookies will taste. And
Uh-huh.
that drives your response.
I reach for a cookie.
You reach for a cookie and take a bite.
The reward is pure bliss.
Exactly. And that reward reinforces the entire loop, right?
So it makes me want to do it again.
It makes it more likely you'll repeat it next time you see those cookies.
I see. So each step in this loop is important.
Yeah.
If we can break that chain somewhere,
Yeah.
we can disrupt the habit.
Right. And one of the most powerful ways to do that
Okay.
is by changing our environment.
Ah, yes. Environment design.
Clear talks about this a lot.
He does.
And there's this fascinating example he uses about Vietnam War veterans
Really?
and heroin addiction.
That sounds intense.
It is. So during the war,
Yeah.
a lot of soldiers became addicted to heroin.
Right.
But when they came back home, a surprising number of them just quit.
Wait, really? That's surprising.
Right. But think about it. In Vietnam,
Oh,
they were surrounded by cues, right? Easy access to the drug,
yes.
stress of war, their buddies using
Oh, back home, all those cues were gone.
Gone, exactly.
Yeah.
So the habit was harder to maintain.
So our surroundings are really powerful.
They are.
If we can change our environment to support our habits,
Exactly.
it becomes much easier to stick to them.
It does.
So are you saying we should all move to a deserted island
Huh. Maybe not that extreme.
to break bad habits?
But we can all take a look around, right?
Okay.
Our homes, our workplaces, even our digital spaces.
Yeah.
And think about how we can make small changes to support the habits we want to build.
So if I'm trying to read more, I could make sure there's a book on my bedside table.
Exactly. Or if you want to eat healthier,
Okay.
put a bowl of fruit on the counter instead of a bag of chips, right?
So make the good choices the easy choices.
It's all about that.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this ties together. But let's talk about dopamine for a minute.
Okay.
That seems to play a big role here.
Absolutely. Dopamine is the feel-good neurotransmitter,
Right.
and it's all about anticipation.
See, I've always thought it was the reward itself.
Yeah.
But you're saying it's actually the anticipation
The anticipation of the reward, exactly.
that gets us hooked.
It's that feeling of excitement,
Right.
that craving we get when we think about something we want.
Like when you see that notification that your food delivery is coming,
Right, exactly.
that little dopamine hit.
And Clear suggests we can use this to our advantage
Oh, okay, how?
with something he calls temptation bundling.
Ooh, what is that?
It's about linking something you need to do
Okay,
with something you want to do.
I see.
Like only letting yourself watch your favorite show while you fold laundry.
So you're basically tricking your brain
You got it.
into associating something I dread with something enjoyable.
Exactly. You're tapping into that dopamine-driven reward system.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is like a game changer.
And the beauty is
Yeah.
there are endless ways to apply this.
Right.
You can bundle almost anything.
Okay, give me some examples. I need inspiration.
How about listening to your favorite podcast while you're doing the dishes?
Okay, yeah.
Or only allowing yourself to have that delicious latte while you're working on that project you've been putting off?
I love that.
Little reward system built into your day.
Yeah, those little rewards can make a big difference, can't they?
They can.
Speaking of making things appealing,
Yeah.
Claire also talks about making habits irresistible, right?
He does. Remember the story of the Polgar sisters?
The chess prodigies. Remind me about them.
So their father basically raised them in a chess-obsessed environment.
Wow.
Chess was everything,
Okay.
Their education, their playtime.
That's intense.
Everything revolved around chess.
But I guess it worked.
It did. They became incredible chess players.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is,
Yeah.
they didn't seem to resent it.
Really?
Because their environment was so carefully designed, rest became something desirable to them.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to do things we hate.
No.
It's about finding ways to make them appealing.
Exactly.
And a lot of that comes from the people we surround ourselves with too, right?
It does. Think about Mike Massimino,
The astronaut.
the astronaut in his robotics class, yeah.
4 out of 10 of his students ended up becoming astronauts.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. I mean,
It's amazing how our social circles shape us,
yeah.
our aspirations and our habits, you know?
It's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly.
So choose your company wisely.
Choose wisely.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all this connects.
Good. I'm glad.
But sometimes, even the most appealing habits
Yeah,
can feel like a chore.
absolutely. That's why Clear talks about reframing our habits.
Reframing. Okay, what's that?
It's all about shifting our perspective.
Oh,
We often talk about things we have to do. I have to go to the gym.
right.
I have to do the dishes.
I know, I do that all the time.
But what if we change that language?
Okay.
What if we said, I get to go to the gym and build strength?
Sensitive.
Or I get to do the dishes and have a clean kitchen?
I like that.
Right.
It's like giving my brain a pep talk.
By reframing those half-toss into get-toss,
Yeah.
we can make those tasks feel
Yeah.
less like obligations and more like opportunities.
I love that. But what about
Okay.
when even those pep talks aren't enough
Well, in those cases,
and we're still struggling to get started?
that's where the 2-minute rule comes in.
Okay.
Clear says we should break down any task
All right.
into a tiny 2-minute version.
2 minutes. How can that possibly help?
Well, the idea is
Yeah.
that even the most complex habit can be started in just 2 minutes.
You okay?
You don't have to write an entire chapter, just write for 2 minutes.
Nice.
You don't have to
Okay.
clean the whole house, just clean for 2 minutes.
It's like taking that first step. Right.
Exactly. And once you've started, it's often much easier to keep going, you know?
It's about building that momentum.
It is. It is.
Yeah, this is making me rethink all those times
Yeah.
I've felt overwhelmed and just given up.
Right.
Maybe I just needed to break it down
Exactly.
into smaller chunks.
Smaller chumps.
And each time you do that,
Yeah,
you're reinforcing those neural pathways,
you are.
making it easier to repeat the habit next time.
Neurons that fire together wire together.
Right.
The more we repeat an action, the more ingrained it becomes.
This reminds me of Victor Hugo.
Oh, yeah.
He had a deadline for The Hunchback of Notre Dame,
I love that story.
but he was struggling to stay focused.
Yeah,
So he locked away all his clothes,
he did.
except for a big shawl.
No suitable clothes, no going out,
That's commitment.
no distraction.
But I guess it worked if you finish the book.
he did.
And it highlights this idea of commitment devices, right?
It does.
The choices we make now to influence our future actions.
Oh.
So if I'm trying to cut back on social media,
Okay.
maybe I should delete those apps from my phone.
That's a great idea. Make it more difficult.
Right. Make it harder to do the thing you don't want to do.
You could use website blockers
Oh.
or give your phone to a friend.
I like that.
Keep it out of reach.
It's like setting up a roadblock.
You're recognizing that willpower
Yeah,
is a limited resource.
it really is.
We need to design our environment to minimize the need for it.
This is amazing. It feels like we have control over our habits
We do.
rather than feeling like they control us.
That's the beauty of it.
Okay, so we've talked about making good habits easier
Yes.
and bad habits harder.
Right.
But what about when we slip up? How do we stay on track?
Clear has this great saying,
Okay.
never miss twice.
Never miss twice. I like that.
If you miss one day, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
The key is to get back on track quickly.
So consistency over perfection.
Exactly. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be consistent.
It reminds me of those paperclip jars.
The paper clip jars.
Even if we have a day, we don't move any clips.
Right.
It's important to start fresh the next day.
You got it.
And remember, habit tracking is a powerful tool.
It is powerful.
It can really help us stay motivated.
Yeah, but it's not just about blindly tracking numbers.
Right. We need to make sure
You don't want to sacrifice the quality.
that those numbers reflect meaningful progress.
Exactly. Clear talks about Goodhart's law.
Goodhart's law, remind me what that is.
Basically, it says when a measure becomes a target,
Okay.
it ceases to be a good measure.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine your goal is to be healthier,
Oh,
and you decide to track your steps each day.
okay. Yeah.
You might end up walking around your house aimlessly
Just to hit the goal.
just to hit that 10,000 step goal.
Even though I should be resting.
Right. You become obsessed with hitting the number
Yeah.
that you lose sight of what matters.
Okay, I see.
It's crucial to remember measurement is a tool, not the end goal.
Right. It's supposed to guide us, not control us.
Exactly.
So habit tracking is good, but we need to use it wisely.
Wisely, yes.
Okay, now let's talk about the role of rewards.
Okay.
We talked about dopamine earlier, but I'm curious to hear more.
It comes back to how our brains are wired. We're naturally drawn to immediate gratification,
Okay.
even if it means sacrificing long-term rewards.
That's why it's so easy to reach for that donut,
Exactly.
even though we know it's not good for us.
Instant sugar rush over long-term health.
Yeah, our brains haven't quite caught up
Not quite.
with the demands of modern society.
Where so many goals require delayed gratification.
Right, exactly.
So, Clear offers a solution.
Okay, what's that?
We need to find ways to make good habits feel immediately rewarding.
How do we do that?
One strategy is to use reinforcement.
Okay.
This means giving ourselves a small reward immediately after a habit,
Okay.
like enjoying a cup of tea after a workout,
I like that.
or listening to your favorite music while cleaning.
So we're hacking our brains.
We're associating good habits with pleasure.
I love that. It's turning half toss into one toss.
It is.
And the reward doesn't have to be big either, right?
No, not at all.
It's about finding something that truly brings you joy.
Exactly.
This reminds me of those coffee shop loyalty cards.
Oh, yeah.
They're tapping into this reward system,
They are. A little incentive to keep coming back.
and it feels good to get that free drink.
It does. A small reward, but it keeps us motivated.
Okay, so rewards are important for making those habits stick.
Yeah.
But how do we keep our enthusiasm up?
Well,
How do we prevent those habits from becoming boring?
Clear talks about variability,
Yes, totally.
keeping things fresh.
Okay.
So if you're always doing the same workout,
Yeah.
maybe try mixing it up.
Maybe try a new class, find a different running buddy.
Exactly.
Oh.
Listen to different podcasts or music while you run.
So it's about finding ways to keep it interesting.
Keep it fresh. Yeah.
So it's not about finding the perfect routine
No.
and sticking to it rigidly.
No.
It's about adapting and evolving.
It is.
This is a whole new way of thinking about habits.
Is it?
It's not about seeing them as rules.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
we can approach them with a sense of curiosity.
Exactly. That's what makes Atomic Habits so brilliant. It's not just a collection of tips.
Yeah.
It's a comprehensive framework.
Okay, this has been amazing.
I'm glad.
We're running out of time for this part, though.
Okay.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Don't worry, there's plenty more.
So stay tuned for the final part
We'll be back soon
of our deep dive.
with more Atomic Habits.
We'll learn even more ways to level up our habit game.
We will.
Welcome back.
Back for more.
Last time, we dug into some pretty mind-blowing concepts.
Yeah, like how our tiny daily choices shape our future selves.
Atomic habits, man. This stuff is powerful.
It is, isn't it? We talked about environment design,
Right?
that dopamine reward system, and how small changes
Yeah.
can make a huge difference over time.
But let's be real.
Okay.
We're not always going to be super motivated, are we?
That's the truth. Motivation can be fickle.
There are going to be days when we just
Right.
don't want to do the things we know we should do.
Absolutely.
So what do we do on those days?
Oh.
You know, when thinking about going for a run or working on that project,
Right.
makes us want to crawl back into bed.
I think the key here is recognizing
Okay.
that we don't always need to feel motivated to actually act.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
You're telling me I can build habits even when I don't feel like it?
You can. Think about it.
Really? That sounds too good to be true.
Think about all the things you do effortlessly,
Okay.
even when you're not feeling particularly inspired.
Like what?
Scrolling through your phone, checking email, watching TV.
Okay. Yeah, guilty as charged.
Those are habits too, right?
Right.
We rarely need a burst of motivation for those.
That's true. They're just automatic.
They're just part of our routine.
So how do we make the good habits just as automatic?
Well, Clear suggests focusing on what he calls friction.
Friction.
Yeah, reducing the friction associated with those habits.
So like if I'm trying to get to the gym more often,
Okay.
I should make it as convenient as possible.
Exactly.
Like joining a gym that's on my way to work.
Right. Remove any obstacles that might make it harder.
So this ties back into environment design then.
It does. It does.
It's not just about making cues obvious. It's also about
Yeah,
making the desired actions easier.
absolutely.
It's all about creating an environment that helps me reach my goals.
That's the key takeaway.
So if I want to read more, I could keep a book on my bedside table.
Exactly. Make it effortless to pick it up and start reading.
Right, instead of having it tucked away on a bookshelf somewhere.
It's about making the good choices, the easy choices.
I like it. It's like setting ourselves up for success
That's exactly what you're doing.
before we even start.
Right. What's one tiny thing you could do right now to make a desired habit easier? Could you lay out your workout clothes?
Okay, yeah,
Put a healthy snack on the counter.
I could do that.
Just little things.
These are good, actionable tips.
They are.
It's about making those good habits as frictionless as possible.
Right.
Now, what about those bad habits?
Okay.
Any advice on how to make those less appealing?
Remember Victor Hugo.
The guy who locked up his clothes.
Locking away his clothes to avoid distractions.
Yeah.
We can apply that to other areas of life.
So if I'm trying to cut back on social media,
Okay. Yeah.
maybe I should delete the apps from my phone.
That's one way to do it. Make the undesirable action harder.
Make it more difficult to do.
Right. You could also use website blockers
Mm-hmm.
or give your phone to someone, keep it out of reach.
It's like setting up roadblocks, right?
It is, exactly.
And protect ourselves from temptation.
You're recognizing that willpower is limited.
Willpower is definitely limited.
And you're designing your environment to minimize the need for it.
It makes sense.
That's what we're trying to do.
This is so empowering. It feels like we actually have control
You do.
over our habits, you know,
You're not at their mercy.
rather than feeling like they're controlling us.
Exactly.
Okay, we've talked about making good habits easier,
Yeah.
bad habits harder.
Right.
But what about when we slip up?
Yeah, it happens.
How do we stay on track and not get discouraged?
Clear has another great saying.
Okay,
Never miss twice.
look, I never miss twice.
If we miss one day,
Yeah, it's not the end of the world.
it's not the end. The key is to get back on track quickly.
So consistency over perfection.
Exactly. We don't need to be perfect.
Right.
We just need to keep trying.
This reminds me of those paperclip jars.
Oh, the paperclip jars? Yeah.
Even if I have a day where I don't move any clicks,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to start fresh the next day.
You got it.
And remember, habit tracking can really help.
It can, but it's not just about the numbers.
Right.
It's about making sure.
That we're not sacrificing quality for quantity.
Exactly. Clear highlights a potential pitfall.
Okay.
He calls it Goodhart's Law.
Goodhart's Law. Refresh my memory.
Okay, so it basically says when a measure becomes a target,
Okay.
it ceases to be a good measure.
Can you give me an example? I'm not sure I follow.
Sure. Let's say you're trying to be healthier
Okay.
and you decide to track your steps each day.
Uh-huh.
You might end up walking around the house aimlessly
Oh, just to get the steps in.
just to hit that 10,000 steps.
Even though I should be resting,
Exactly.
right? It can become an obsession.
You become so obsessed with the number
So-
that you forget about the bigger picture.
Got it.
It's important to remember.
Yeah.
Measurement is a tool, not the end goal.
It's supposed to guide us, not control us.
Right, right.
Okay, so habit tracking, good tool,
Good tool, but use it wisely.
but use it wisely.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about rewards.
Okay.
We talked about dopamine before, but I want to hear more.
It all comes back to how our brains work.
Yeah.
We're wired for immediate gratification,
We are.
even if it means sacrificing long-term benefits.
Right, that explains a lot.
It does, doesn't it? That's
Yeah.
why it's so easy to reach for the donut,
When you know you should be having a salad.
even though we know it's not good for us.
Right, our brains haven't quite caught up to modern life,
No, not quite.
where so many things require delayed gratification.
They do.
So what's the solution?
Well, Clear suggests
Mm-hmm.
finding ways to make good habits feel immediately rewarding.
Immediately rewarding.
Yeah, one strategy is to use what he calls reinforcement.
Reinforcement.
This means giving ourselves a small reward
Okay.
right after completing a habit.
So like a little treat.
Like enjoying a cup of tea after a workout
I like that.
or listening to music while cleaning.
So we're associating those good habits with something enjoyable.
You got it.
I'm turning have-tos into want-tos.
That's the idea.
And the reward doesn't have to be big either, right?
No, not at all. It's about finding what you enjoy.
This is making me think about those coffee shop loyalty cards.
Oh, yeah. Good example.
That little punch card. They give you a free drink.
They're tapping into that reward system,
They are.
giving you an incentive to come back.
And you know what? It works.
It does. Small reward, but it keeps you motivated.
Okay, so rewards are important.
They are.
They make those habits stick.
Yeah.
But how do we keep things fresh and exciting?
Oh, that's a good question.
You know, how do we prevent habits from becoming boring?
Clea talks about variability,
Variability.
keeping things interesting.
Okay.
So if you're always doing the same workout,
Yeah.
maybe mix it up.
Okay. How?
Try different routes.
Okay.
Find a running buddy.
I could do that.
Listen to different music while you run.
Okay, so keep it interesting.
Keep it fresh, yeah.
So it's not about finding the perfect routine
It's not about being rigid.
and sticking to it no matter what.
No.
It's about evolving as we go.
It is.
This is making me rethink things. It's not about rules.
It's about mindset.
We can approach habits with a sense of curiosity.
Exactly. That's what I love about Atomic Habits.
Yeah, it's more than just tips and tricks.
It's a framework, right?
Okay, we've got to wrap up this part.
Okay.
But there's more to come.
Yeah, don't worry.
Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive,
We'll be back.
where we explore even more insights
More Atomic Habits.
from Atomic Habits.
And how to really level up our habit game.
Welcome back to our deep dive
The final part.
into Atomic Habits.
Can you believe how much we've covered?
It's been a lot, but so interesting.
I know, right?
There's one key concept we need to circle back to.
What's that?
Identity.
Oh, yeah, identity, the foundation of it all.
Clear says it's not just about changing our actions.
It's deeper than that.
It's about changing who we believe we are.
It is. It's about...
So it's less about checking things off a list.
Right.
It's more about becoming the type of person
Exactly.
who naturally does those things.
It's a mindset shift.
It's like instead of forcing myself to be a morning person,
Yeah.
I become someone who loves waking up early.
That's the goal.
Okay, I get it. But how do we actually make that shift?
Well, I think the key is to start small.
Small.
Every time you act in alignment with that desired identity,
Yeah.
you reinforce that belief.
So if I want to be a writer
Okay. Yeah.
and I sit down and write, even just a little bit, that's a vote for writer.
It is. Those little actions add up.
They shape how I see myself.
They do. It's a long game, though, isn't it?
This isn't about overnight transformations,
No, not at all. It's about showing up consistently,
even when it's hard.
even when you don't feel like it.
What about when we mess up?
The inevitable slip-ups.
Do those completely erase all the progress we've made?
Remember, never miss twice.
Right. Never miss twice.
It applies here, too. We're aiming for a consistent trend.
So one late night scrolling on my phone
Doesn't erase all the good work you've done.
doesn't undo weeks of building good digital habits.
Exactly. It's about the bigger picture.
This changes how I look at setbacks.
That's it.
They don't have to be these huge derailments.
They can be little detours as long as you get back on track.
It's about getting back on the main road.
Exactly. And you know what?
What?
Those detours can actually be valuable. They can be learning experiences.
I never thought of it like that.
What triggered the slip up? What can I do differently next time?
Asking those questions can help us get back on track.
It can.
Okay, so we're focusing on our identity.
Yes.
But how do we keep things interesting,
Right. How do we avoid boredom?
Even good habits can get stale after a while.
This is where the explore-exploit trade-off comes in.
Explore, exploit, right?
Remember that?
Once I've established a habit,
Yeah. You might want to?
I can revisit that exploration phase.
You can. Exactly.
So if my workouts are getting boring,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I try a new class or find a new running buddy.
You could even...
Or explore a completely new type of exercise.
Right. Try something totally different.
It's about finding that balance between challenge and comfort.
You got it.
We want to push ourselves,
But not too much.
but not get overwhelmed.
That's the key.
This is an ongoing process, right?
It is. Life isn't static.
Our habits need to evolve as we grow.
Exactly. The key is to stay curious, keep experimenting.
So it's not about finding the perfect set of habits
No.
and sticking to them no matter what.
No, it's about
It's about finding what works for us,
and adapting
adapting as we go.
and enjoying the journey.
This whole deep dive has been incredible.
I'm glad you think so.
I feel like I have a new understanding of how habits work
Good.
and how I can use them to create the life I want.
That's the goal. And remember, dear listener,
Yeah.
it's not just about the destination.
It's about the journey.
It's about enjoying the process.
What a great point to end on.
What small step will you take today
Even the smallest action done consistently.
can lead to amazing things.
That's something for all of us to think about.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Atomic Habits.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time,
See you then.
happy habit building.
Bye for now.
Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Awesome. So today we're going deep on personal growth and success
Oh, good topic.
with Dr. Robert Anthony's Beyond Positive Thinking.
You know this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I read it for the show, but it's a revised edition of his book, The Advanced Formula for Total Success.
Okay.
And let me tell you, this book,
Is it good?
oh, it's good. It gets right to the point,
I'll read that.
It's packed with practical advice, all based on like solid psychology and even some like metaphysics sprinkled in.
Metaphysics.
Yeah. But it's all about helping you, create the life you actually want.
Sounds right up our alley.
Right. And actually, even Dr. Joe Vitale.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. He gives Dr. Anthony a huge shout out in the intro.
Nice.
He says Anthony's work had a big impact on his own journey.
That's awesome.
So, we're in good company.
Yeah, if Joe Vitella's reading it.
Exactly. So we're not just talking about the typical think positive stuff. This goes way deeper. Dr. Anthony goes right into how our minds work.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah. And how we can actually tap into that power
I like it.
to, really transform our lives.
This is what we're all about here.
Right. So he starts off by challenging,
Challenging what?
well, both positive and negative thinking.
Okay.
He says they're both kind of filtered through, our belief systems.
Sure.
And those beliefs,
They can be messed up sometimes.
yes, sometimes they're based on like straight up illusions.
I feel that.
So then the question is, what's the alternative?
Right. If positive and negative thinking are both not the best.
Yeah. And he gives us this super interesting concept. He calls it right thinking.
Okay, right thinking. I like the sound of that.
It's not just slapping a positive label on things.
We're pretending everyth's fine.
No, not at all. And it's not ignoring negativity either.
Okay.
It's about aligning your actions with the truth.
Deep.
Yeah, the truth that your higher self shows you.
Like your intuition.
Yeah, exactly. It's about seeing things clearly
That makes sense.
so you can solve problems in a way that actually truly works.
I dig it. Right thinking.
Right. But honestly, sometimes I feel stuck,
Shatag.
like I'm using a teaspoon.
a teaspoon.
Yeah, like I'm trying to scoop up all the good stuff in life, but
Yeah, but there's so much more.
yeah, like a whole river of abundance right in front of me.
Oh, I see.
Does Dr. Anthony address that feeling of like limitation?
He does. He actually uses that exact analogy, the river of life.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. He says you can use a teaspoon, a bucket, or a whole barrel
Wow.
to take what you need. The limits, he says, are all in our heads.
Self-imposed limitations.
Exactly.
Okay, so then how do we break free from those?
Well, he talks about understanding the self.
Like who we really are?
Yes. He separates who we are from what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And he says all that beating ourselves up over past mistakes.
Oh.
That's our ego talking, not our true selves.
Oh, that's good. So it's not about denying what we've done,
But separating those actions.
from who we are at our core.
Right. He says we need to affirm our self-perfection.
Self-perfection.
Yeah. Recognizing that we are already like spiritually whole and complete.
Okay.
And our actions, they don't define us.
Do you?
We are not our mistakes.
Oh, I like that. That's a relief to hear.
Right.
But if we're not defined by what we do,
Then what shapes our experiences?
yeah, what shapes our outcomes?
That's where our self-talk comes in.
Self-talk, like how we talk to ourselves.
Exactly. Dr. Anthony says that shapes our self-image.
Makes sense.
And then that self-image, well, it influences our behavior.
And the results we get.
Right. It creates this like self-reinforcing cycle. Your performance affects how you talk to yourself, which then affects your self-image, which then affects your future performance.
Oh, wow. So if I keep telling myself I'm not good enough
You're more likely to act in ways that confirm that belief.
and get results that reinforce it.
Exactly. But on the flip side,
If I focus on my strengths,
and visualize yourself succeeding,
uh-huh,
then you start replacing those negative images.
so powerful. So it's not just about thinking positive. It's about,
Thinking right.
yeah, aligning our thoughts with who we truly are.
Powerful stuff.
But how do we actually make that shift?
Well, Dr. Anthony introduces some tools for reprogramming the mind.
Okay, like what?
Things like affirmations and visualizations.
Oh, okay.
They might sound familiar,
Yeah, I've heard of those.
but he takes them to a whole new level, and he emphasizes that we need to like challenge those deep-seated beliefs that are holding us back.
So not just repeating positive phrases.
No, it's deeper than that. He
Okay.
says positive self-talk, visualizations, when done right, can reprogram your mind for success.
Like rewiring your brain.
Yeah. He even uses this analogy.
I love a good analogy.
Okay, picture a glass of dirty water,
Okay.
and then you pour clean water into it.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the dirty water?
It gets pushed out.
Right, so the clean water, that's like your positive thought.
And the dirty water's the negative beliefs.
Yes. You're replacing negativity with empowering thoughts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a process though, right?
It is. But with consistent effort, you can change those patterns. And with affirmations, he gives you specific do's and don'ts.
Oh, good, because I need help with those.
Well, for example, he says people make the mistake of using vague statements.
Yeah, like I want to be happy.
Right. Or focusing on what they don't want instead of what they do want.
So instead of I don't want to be broke, it's
I am financially abundant.
Oh, I like that.
You got to be specific, positive, and present tense focused.
Powerful. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. He has this thing he calls the affirmation insurance policy.
What's that?
He says to add this little phrase to your affirmations.
Okay.
I accept this, or something better. Please make whatever takes place for the highest good of myself and everyone else involved.
Ooh, that's good. It's like acknowledging.
Like the universe might have a better plan.
Yeah, that there might be something even better out there.
Exactly. It takes the pressure off of controlling every little thing.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about right thinking, self-talk, and affirmations. What else is in store for us?
Well, next we'll dive into attracting financial abundance.
Oh, that's my favorite topic.
Yeah?
Let's do it. All right, so financial abundance. Who doesn't want more of that?
Yeah, it's like this universal desire.
Totally. But sometimes it feels so elusive.
Yeah, like there's some secret formula we're missing.
Exactly. So what does Dr. Anthony say about attracting more wealth and creating that financial freedom?
Well, he starts by saying that it all begins within.
Within.
Yeah, like with our consciousness.
Oh, okay.
Not with external factors, you know.
Interesting. So it's not about getting that promotion or winning the lottery.
It's more about shifting our mindset around money.
Makes sense. Because I consider myself a pretty positive person.
Uh-huh.
But when it comes to money, I definitely have some like deep-seated fears and beliefs.
That's super common.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. We pick up these subconscious beliefs about money from all over the place.
Like where?
Our families, our culture, even jokes or sayings we hear growing up.
Wow, I never thought about that.
It's subtle but powerful.
So what kind of beliefs are we talking about?
Well, things like money is the root of all evil,
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
or rich people are greedy, or even just feeling like we don't deserve to be wealthy.
Oof, that's a tough one.
Right. But those beliefs can really sabotage our efforts.
To attract abundance.
Exactly. It's like we're putting up these invisible barriers.
So how do we break free from those?
Well, Dr. Anthony suggests a few things. One is to challenge those beliefs directly.
Okay, how do we do that?
Ask yourself where they came from. Are they really your beliefs? Or did you inherit them from someone else?
Good question.
And are they based on facts or just stories you've been telling yourself?
It's like shining a light on those beliefs.
Exactly. Expose them to the truth.
I like that.
Another powerful approach is cultivating what he calls an abundance consciousness.
Abundance consciousness.
Yeah, it's about shifting your perspective to see the limitless nature of the universe.
Okay.
Like believing there's more than enough for everyone.
That's a good one.
Abundance isn't a pie that needs to be divided. It's an ever-expanding feast.
I love that analogy.
Right, more for everyone.
It changes the whole game. And speaking of creating more,
Yes.
Dr. Anthony talks about this universal bank.
Oh, that's a good one.
What is that?
He says giving without expecting anything in return.
Okay.
It's like making a deposit into this universal bank.
Interesting.
And that generosity, that willingness to contribute,
Yeah.
it comes back to you with interest at the perfect time.
It's like karma points.
Kind of. It's
Yeah.
about understanding that abundance flows through giving.
So the more we give, the more we open ourselves up to receiving.
Exactly. But then there's fear, right?
Ugh, yeah. Fear can be a big one when it comes to money.
It can block the flow of abundance.
In what way?
Well, he says it often leads to, like, unexpected expenses. Yeah, it's like we're unconsciously creating the things we're afraid of.
You know, it's funny you say that.
Why?
Because it's like when you're worried about your car breaking down,
Yeah,
and then it actually does break down.
it's crazy how that works.
Like our fear is attracting those negative experiences.
It's a real phenomenon. And he also talks about the importance of being a good receiver.
receiver.
Yeah, it's not just about giving, but also being open to receiving.
Oh, okay.
Like compliments, gifts, opportunities. Accept them gracefully.
So it's about completing that cycle of abundance.
Yes, letting go of the
That's-
resistance to receive.
Releasing that feeling of unworthiness.
Exactly. And then he talks about the seed money principle.
Seed money.
Yeah, it's about planting seeds of wealth by giving to things that support your personal growth.
Interesting. So like investing in ourselves.
Yes. He believes that by giving to causes aligned with our growth,
Hmm.
we're essentially investing in our own abundance.
It's like nurturing the soil where our wealth will grow.
I love that. It's a beautiful way to look at it.
So it's not just about accumulating wealth. It's about
Circulating it consciously.
in a way that benefits us and the world.
Exactly. And that brings us to another cool part of his work. Overcoming obstacles and achieving goals. He has this framework called the 5 R's.
5 R's. Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's a process for shifting your consciousness and creating the results you want.
Ooh, I like that. Lay it on me. What are the 5 R's?
They are relax, recognize, realize, reason, and release.
Okay, those sound powerful.
He says when you practice these 5 steps together, you can navigate any challenge and manifest your dreams.
All right, I'm ready to unlock my inner superpower. Break it down for me. What does each R represent?
So the first one, relax, is all about achieving both physical and emotional relaxation,
Okay,
like releasing tension and stress before you tackle anything challenging.
that makes sense.
It's about creating a calm and clear space within yourself.
Yeah, because it's hard to think straight when you're all stressed out.
Exactly. The second R is recognize.
Recognize what?
The existence of a universal mind.
Oh, like a higher power.
Yeah, a source of infinite power, knowledge, and wisdom.
Okay, so we're tapping into something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And then comes realize
I realize what?
that our minds are actually part of that universal mind.
Whoa, we're all connected.
We're connected to its infinite potential.
Okay, that's mind-blowing.
It changes everything when you realize you're not alone on this journey.
And we have access to all that wisdom and power.
Yes, and once you acknowledge that connection, you move to the fourth R, reason.
Reason, okay, what does that involve?
It's about using logic and reason to overcome negative self-talk.
So choosing our thoughts consciously
Yes, and focusing on the outcome you desire.
instead of dwelling on what we fear.
Exactly. And finally, there's release.
Release what?
Worry. And trust that your subconscious mind will bring your goal to fruition.
Ah, surrender. Letting go of that need to control everything.
You got it. Once you've set your intention and taken action, you have to let go.
Trust the process.
Trust the universe.
Okay, I love this framework, the 5 R's. But what about those limiting beliefs that can still creep in?
Yes. Those pesky beliefs. Well, that's where Dr. Anthony gets even more practical. He dives into the common fears and anxieties that hold us back from taking action.
Yeah, fear can be such a tricky thing.
It really can. It disguises itself as, like, being practical or wise.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's really just holding us back.
So what kind of fears does he talk about?
Well, he talks about those universal fears we all face.
Like,
Fear of failure,
oh, yeah.
fear of judgment,
Hmm.
and the fear of the unknown.
Classic fears.
But they can be so paralyzing. They can keep us stuck in our comfort zone.
For sure, he calls them invisible walls.
Perfect description. So how do we deal with them?
He says to examine them.
Like really look at them.
Yeah. Ask yourself, is this fear based on reality? Or is it just, my own insecurities?
That's a good question to ask.
Often, when we shine a light on our fears,
They lose their power.
exactly, it's like letting the air out of a balloon.
I like that analogy.
And he also talks about the impact of what he calls NIOPs.
NIOPs.
Yeah. Stands for negative influence of other people.
Okay, I've never heard that before.
Basically, those people who even unintentionally spread negativity.
Oh yeah, I know those people.
They can limit our growth.
With their pessimism and doubt.
Exactly. They might have good intentions, but
But their negativity can be contagious.
it really can. So you have to be mindful of who you spend your time with.
Set boundaries,
Yes, you don't have to cut people out of your life
but limit your exposure
to their negativity.
and surround yourself with people who lift you up.
Exactly. Choose to nourish yourself with positive energy.
That's a great way to put it. And you know what else I like about Dr. Anthony?
What's that?
He challenges that belief that life has to be complicated and difficult.
Yes. Keeping it simple.
Because, honestly, sometimes it feels like we make things so much harder than they need to be.
Right. He reminds us that creating success is actually pretty simple.
Okay, I'm listening.
Set a goal, believe you can achieve it. Take action. He even says to give up hope.
Give up hope. Wait, isn't hope a good thing?
He's not saying give up on your dreams.
Oh.
He means give up hope as a form of procrastination.
I see.
Because when we're hoping, we're passively waiting for something to happen.
Instead of taking action ourselves.
Right. It prevents us from being responsible in the present moment.
So it's about shifting from passive hope to active creation.
Exactly. And that leads to his final point, which I think ties everything together.
What's that?
The power of the present moment.
Ah, the present moment. Easier said than done, right?
It can be. But he reminds us that the present moment is the only place where we can truly experience and create our lives.
But it's so easy to get caught up in the past.
Or worry about the future.
Totally. It's like mental time travel.
It keeps us stuck in a loop of regret and anxiety.
He says to say yes to the present moment.
Yes. while consciously creating our desired future.
Okay.
And he makes this distinction between inner and outer purpose.
Ooh, what's that about?
He says outer purpose is about achieving goals and creating the life we want in the material world.
Okay.
And inner purpose is about cultivating joy and peace and fulfillment.
In the present moment.
Right now, regardless of external circumstances.
So it's finding that balance.
Exactly. Between striving for our goals and savoring the journey.
Appreciating each moment along the way.
Yes. Don't put your happiness on hold until you reach some future goal.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. We've covered so much ground.
Right. Thinking, self-talk, affirmations, financial abundance, overcoming obstacles, the present moment.
It's like a whole toolkit for personal growth.
And it's all about empowerment.
Yeah, taking control of our lives and creating what we truly desire.
Exactly. So for our listeners who are ready to take that leap, to move beyond positive thinking,
What's one small step they can take today?
start paying attention to your self-talk.
Become aware of those negative beliefs.
Yeah. What stories are you telling yourself, about money, about your ability to achieve your goals?
And then
Consciously replace those limiting beliefs with empowering affirmations.
choose to focus on what you want to create.
And don't forget about visualization.
See yourself living that dream life.
Feel the joy, the excitement, the accomplishment.
Plant those seeds in your imagination.
Remember the 5 R's.
Relax, recognize, realize, reason, and release.
It's a powerful process.
And remember to give up hope.
Not on your dreams, but on passive waiting.
Embrace active creation.
Step into your power.
It's all about taking charge of our lives. And if you want to dive deeper into all of this,
Check out Dr. Robert Anthony's book, Beyond Positive Thinking.
it's packed with practical advice.
And here's a final thought for you.
Okay, I'm listening.
What one small step can you take today to start living a life that brings you joy and excitement?
That's a great question to ponder.
It could be starting a new hobby, reconnecting with a friend, spending time in nature.
Or just taking a moment to appreciate the beauty around you.
Remember, you have the power to create a life you love.
One step at a time.
Keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
We'll see you next time. All right, get ready to dive deep because today we're tackling Your Dreams Are Mine.
Ooh, good one.
It's a bestseller, and we're going to use these excerpts to figure out why.
Yeah.
It's like a window into student life in India,
Right.
specifically Delhi University.
That's a unique setting, right?
Exactly. It's not just any student life.
No.
We're talking student politics and activism.
So much energy.
Yeah, like a pressure cooker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we meet Rupali. She's our main character.
Okay.
Fresh out of Patna, arrives at Delhi University,
Oh, wow.
wide-eyed, full of ambition,
Love it.
and she loves music,
Really?
like really loves it.
I see.
And the university throws this whole flash mob welcome at her.
Oh, wow.
Very symbolic, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got this vibrant, energetic surface,
Mm-hmm.
but there's this undercurrent of tension too.
Oh,
Right away, you can just tell
interesting.
things are about to get complicated.
Yeah.
Naturally, Rupali goes straight to the music club auditions.
Yeah.
This is how we're introduced to Shafi's tea shop.
Okay.
It's like the hangout spot
Gotcha.
full of masala chai and gossip, I bet.
Probably. Yeah.
So like the heart of the student community, right?
Definitely.
Everyone goes there to unwind, debate,
Yeah.
just soak up the atmosphere. Even in this seemingly carefree place,
Right.
you get hints of these political divisions simmering beneath the surface.
Like that vandalism incident, right?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The music club stuff gets trashed.
Oh,
What a welcome to campus life.
cute.
Like, it's not just playful rivalry.
Right.
There's some real animosity here.
Yeah, you can feel it.
It's a sign of things to come.
For sure.
And then we meet Professor Mahajan.
Okay.
This powerful figure embodies those tensions, right?
Yeah.
Rupali sees him straight up abusing his power,
Whoa.
leads to a confrontation,
Mm-hmm.
really sets the story in motion.
That's a turning point.
It's that moment when you realize
Yeah.
Rupali's not going to be a passive observer.
Right.
She's going to fight back.
Makes you wonder how.
And the fact that this is tied to the quota system debate,
Oh, interesting.
so significant.
Definitely.
The novel doesn't shy away from the complexity of it.
Mhm.
You see arguments for and against the system,
Right.
like a reflection of real-life struggles, you know?
Oh, yeah.
This is what's happening in Indian society.
Definitely relatable.
Okay, so we've got this backdrop of political turmoil.
Yeah.
Then enters Arjun,
Mm.
a student leader,
Mhm.
whose path, of course, intersects with Rupali's.
Had to happen.
Their first encounters, kind of a mess.
Really?
Misunderstandings, clashing personalities,
Ito.
but also
Yeah.
this undeniable spark, right?
Ooh, I like it.
Drawn to each other despite their differences.
Opposites attract.
It's that classic trope, but with a twist.
Yeah, the political tension.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is good.
That rooftop meeting.
Yes.
This is where things start to shift.
Makes sense.
They see past the judgments.
Interesting.
They recognize these shared values.
Ooh, the foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when the romance starts to blossom.
Amidst the chaos.
Amidst all this chaos.
Wow.
That scene at the airport,
Yeah, the first kiss, right?
the first kiss.
Beautifully written, I bet.
So beautifully written.
You can feel it.
You can feel the hope and vulnerability.
Yeah.
All amidst the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a brief respite from the storm that's brewing.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
Because things are about to take a dark turn. Oh no. Yeah, a turning point.
In the story, for the characters and for us, the readers,
Yeah.
we're forced to confront this darker side of this world.
Right.
The consequences of all these simmering tensions we've been seeing.
Totally.
And the novel doesn't shy away from the aftermath.
No.
We see the media frenzy,
Oh, yeah.
the protests.
Across campus. Yeah, erupting across the campus.
Wow.
All the political maneuvering.
I bet.
It's this whirlwind of activity.
Mm-hmm.
But it highlights the systemic issues too, right?
For sure.
Like, that attack was a spark?
Oh, yeah.
That ignited a powder keg?
Totally.
Suddenly all these underlying problems
Yeah.
brought to the surface?
Crazy.
Everyone's grappling with how to respond.
What a mess.
And then
Yeah.
the devastating news, Rupali,
Yeah.
she doesn't survive the attack.
Oh, gosh.
It's this gut-wrenching loss.
Awful.
Leaves everyone reeling.
Makes you wonder how they cope.
It's like a punch to the gut, you know?
Yeah.
You're so invested in these characters.
Right.
And then this happens.
It's heartbreaking.
It reminds you of the fragility of life.
Yeah.
The way violence can just shatter everything
In an instant.
in an instant.
And the novel captures that.
Yes.
The grief, the anger.
So raw.
So
You
authentic.
feel the weight of it all.
Right.
That sense of injustice.
Mm-hmm.
The desperate need for answers.
I wonder where this story goes from there.
So where does it go from there?
Yeah.
How do they cope?
With this immense loss.
Yeah, with this loss.
Yeah. Well, the focus shifts to the pursuit of justice.
Okay.
Professor Mahajan is arrested.
Okay.
The legal battle begins.
But it's not simple.
Right.
It's not straightforward at all. It's a long fight.
Ruling.
Grueling fight.
Yeah.
Exposes all the complexities of the system.
Right.
You can feel the frustration building.
Totally.
The desire for swift justice clashes with the reality.
What a slow system.
A slow-moving system.
Oh, it's like one step forward, two steps back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even when the truth is clear. Right.
Right.
Getting accountability
Yeah.
can be a long and arduous process.
So frustrating.
And it's not just about the legal battle.
Right.
The characters are dealing with personal grief, too.
Of course. Yeah.
Trauma.
We see it with Saloni. Right.
Yes.
Rupali's roommate. Struggling to cope with the loss, losing her friend,
Yeah.
and her own sense of safety is shattered.
Makes you think about the ripple effects, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of a tragedy like this.
It impacts everyone.
Impacts not just the victims, but everyone around them.
Their friends, their families.
Friends, family,
The whole community.
the whole community.
In Saloni's decision to leave,
Right.
heartbreaking.
So heartbreaking.
But understandable.
I get it.
Yeah.
The place holds too much pain.
Too many reminders
Too many reminders
of what she's lost.
of what she's lost.
And then there's Arjun
Yes, or
channeling his grief
right.
into this determination.
And this unwavering determination.
Yeah, to keep Rupali's dreams alive.
It's like he's carrying the torch for her.
Yeah.
Refusing to let her memory
Fade away.
fade away.
It's powerful.
It's a powerful transformation.
He goes from conflicted to a symbol of resilience.
Like he's embodying this fight for justice.
And the power of love.
The enduring power of love.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's like he's found a purpose in all this darkness,
He's honoring her.
honoring her memory
Yeah.
by continuing the work
That she believed in.
that she believed in,
Fighting for the change she wanted.
fighting for the change she wanted to see.
Wow, that makes the ending so powerful.
That's what makes the ending
Yeah.
so poignant.
Yeah.
It's not a happy ending
No.
in the traditional sense.
But there's hope.
There's this glimmer of hope.
A glimmer that
Yeah.
even in the face of tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason to keep fighting.
To keep believing
Yeah.
in a better future.
A better future. I love that.
Yeah.
A better future.
It's interesting, right?
What's that?
How the novel balances those personal moments with these like broader social issues.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Especially with the female characters.
You know, you have Rupali at the heart of it all.
Right.
Her courage.
Yeah,
It's infectious.
it is.
But think about Saloni, too.
Oh, yeah. Saloni.
Starts off just wanting to fit in,
Right.
but then this tragedy forces her to make these tough choices.
It makes you wonder
Yeah.
if you were in her shoes,
Yeah,
how would you react
right. Would you have the strength to stay?
to stay and fight?
Tough questions.
Really tough.
And the novel doesn't shy away
Yeah.
from the tough stuff.
From that tough stuff.
Like the attack on Rupali.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Brutal.
There's no getting around that.
But the focus isn't on the gore.
right.
It's about the why.
the why.
Why does this happen?
Why does this happen?
What are those systemic issues
Yeah.
that lead to this kind of violence?
Exactly.
And it goes beyond just that one event.
Oh, yeah.
The book makes you think about the whole system.
right.
Student politics,
Yeah.
the role of power, the fight for equality.
Like a call to action, wouldn't you say?
Totally. It's like the novel's holding up a mirror
Oh,
to society
Yeah.
saying, look, this is what's happening. What are you going to do about it?
what are you going to do about it?
And that's what makes this deep dive so powerful.
Yes.
You know, we're not just reading a story.
Right.
We're engaging with these ideas,
To these challenges.
with these challenges.
So where does that leave us?
Mhm.
What's the takeaway?
For me, it comes back to Rupali.
Yeah.
Her story shows us
What's it that?
that one person
Mm.
can make a difference.
It might be risky, though.
Oh, it can be.
Difficult.
But having that courage
Yeah.
to stand up for what's right, that's what creates change.
And that's a powerful message for all of us, right?
It really is.
Because it's easy to feel overwhelmed by these big issues.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But this book,
Yeah.
it reminds us that each of us has a role to play.
Each of us.
What would you do
Yeah, what would you do?
if you were in Rupali's shoes?
What kind of change do you want to see?
What kind of change do you want to see in the world?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this is a great deep dive.
Catch you next time.
See ya! Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into another book?
Absolutely. Always excited to explore new stories.
Well, today we're taking a look at The 3 Mistakes of My Life by Chidan Phagat.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this one. It's supposed to be pretty intense.
It definitely packs an emotional punch. And the setting is really interesting. Ahmedabad, India.
I don't know much about Ahmedabad. What's it like?
Well, you can think of it as this vibrant, bustling city with a rich history, but it's also grappling with modern challenges, you know, the kind that come with rapid growth and change.
Ah, so there's this tension between the old and the new. I see. And how does cricket fit into all of this?
Oh, it's not just a sport in this story. It's woven into the very fabric of their lives. It's like a driving force, a passion that unites and divides at the same time.
That's interesting. So it's not just a backdrop. It's like a character itself, almost.
Exactly. It shapes their relationships, their dreams, and even their destinies. Now let's meet the heart of the story, our 3 main characters.
All right, I'm all ears.
First, we have Govind, our narrator,
Yeah.
and he's quite a character.
Oh,
Well, he's ambitious, a real go-getter. He's always analyzing everything, thinking 10 steps ahead.
kind of like a chess player, always strategizing.
Yeah, you could say that there's this drive in him, this hunger to succeed, and not just in the typical sense.
What do you mean by that?
Well, remember how he compares his knack for teaching math to his mother's talent for making those traditional Gujarati snacks?
I don't recall that specifically.
It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes. It's like he's trying to find his own recipe for success, just like his mother has perfected hers in the kitchen.
I see. He wants to create something of his own, make his mark.
Exactly. And this ambition leads him and his 2 best friends, Isha and Omi, on a pretty unusual adventure.
What did they get up to?
They decide to open a cricket shop. Now, that might not sound too out there.
Well, considering their love for cricket, it kind of makes sense.
True. But here's the twist. They set up shop right in the middle of a temple complex.
Whoa, hold on. A cricket shop inside a temple? That's unexpected.
Right. It's like Bhagat is deliberately setting up this clash of worlds, this tension between the sacred and the secular.
And what about Omi's uncle, the one who runs the temple trust? How does he react to this?
Oh, Bitu Mama is not too thrilled about it. He represents the old guard, steeped in tradition, very cautious of change.
So he's probably thinking, cricket equipment in a holy place, what are these youngsters up to?
Exactly. It creates this interesting conflict between generations, between those clinging to tradition and those pushing for something new.
It sounds like Bhagat is really setting the stage for some major clashes, even beyond this cricket shop idea.
Oh, absolutely. And then comes Vizya, who throws another wrench into the works.
Vidya, who's that?
She's Ishan's younger sister.
Why?
And let me tell you, she's a force to be reckoned with. She's brilliant, aiming for medical school.
Sounds like she's got her life planned out.
Yeah, but here's the thing. She absolutely hates math.
Wait, isn't math kind of important for a med student?
You think so, right. But Vidya is full of these contradictions. She's driven, yet rebellious, ambitious, but also wants to break free from expectations.
She sounds like a fascinating character, so complex.
Oh, she is. And to complicate things further, there's this undeniable spark between her and Govind.
Oh, so there's a romantic angle, too.
Absolutely. But it's not a simple love story. It's tangled up in societal expectations, unspoken desires, and a whole lot of tension.
It sounds like their relationship reflects the larger struggle between tradition and modernity in Ahmedabad.
Exactly. It's a microcosm of that larger conflict playing out on a personal level. And amidst all of this, there's cricket, the one thing that brings them together, at least at first.
So even amidst all this complexity, cricket is the common ground.
It is, initially. But even that gets complicated when Ali enters the picture.
Who's Ali?
He's this young Muslim boy with extraordinary cricketing talent. He joins their coaching sessions and, well, things get interesting.
Interesting in what way?
Well, Omi, influenced by his uncle's views, starts to distance himself from Ali.
Because of religious differences.
Sadly, yes. The rising religious tension in the city starts to seep into their friendship. It's a stark reminder of how easily prejudice can shatter even the closest bonds.
It sounds like Bhagat isn't shying away from showing the darker side of this world.
He's not sugarcoating anything. He's presenting a raw, honest portrayal of these characters and the society they live in.
And what about Ali's exceptional talent? Is there more to it?
Oh, there's a fascinating detail there. Bhagat attributes Ali's ability to a unique neurological condition.
Wow, so there's like a scientific explanation for his skills.
Exactly. It's like he has this almost superhuman ability to process information and react with incredible speed.
So on one hand, he's gifted, but on the other, this difference makes him a target in a society already rife with tension.
It's a brilliant move by Bhagat, using this condition to highlight the challenges faced by minorities. They're often seen as both exceptional and threatening, admired and feared at the same time.
It's a powerful way to portray the complexities of prejudice and how it can manifest in unexpected ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this underlying tension sets the stage for some dramatic events that are about to unfold.
Okay, I'm definitely hooked. Now I need to know what happens next.
You know, it's almost like Bhagat saying that beneath all the surface stuff, there's this deeper layer of unrest in Ahmedabad.
Oh, absolutely. And then, bam, the earthquake hits.
Oh, yeah, I'd almost forgotten about that. Just devastates everything, right?
Yeah, it's like the whole city, their lives, everything just crumbles.
And for Govind, losing his shop, that must have been...
Oh, a huge blow. All that work, all that hope, just gone.
But there's that one scene, Vidya's note to Govind really gets to me.
Yeah, in the middle of all that chaos, there's this small act of kindness,
Like a little flower pushing up through the cracks in the pavement.
Exactly. It's like even with everything falling apart around them, their connection is growing stronger.
Reminds me of that saying, what doesn't kill you?
Makes you stronger.
Yeah.
But stronger doesn't always mean easier, right?
Especially with those two. It's like the earthquake shook loose all these unspoken feelings.
Oh, the tension is palpable. Those stolen glances, the secret meetings, it's all very charged.
You can really feel that push and pull between them. The attraction, but also the fear, the guilt.
Yeah, societal expectations, family ties, all that stuff weighs heavily on them. And through it all, you've got Ishan, laser focused on Ali's cricket career.
He's like, earthquake, riots, whatever. We gotta get this kid to Australia.
Right. Almost like he's in denial about the gravity of the situation back home.
Eh.
But hey, who hasn't been blinded by their own passion sometimes?
True enough. But that Godra train burning incident, man, talk about a turning point.
It's like a gut punch. It just rips through the story, exposes all the raw hatred that was simmering beneath the surface.
And Omi's brother, Tiraj, caught right in the middle of it.
Just a senseless tragedy. And poor Omi, consumed by grief, turns to the one person he shouldn't for guidance.
Bitu, mama. Yeah, he's like gasoline on a fire.
Oh, he's a master manipulator. uses this tragedy to fuel his own agenda, points the finger at Ali and his family.
And Govind, caught in the crossfire, he freezes, hesitates.
It's that moment of inaction, that split-second decision that changes everything.
And the consequences, man, their brutal relationships shattered, lives lost.
It's heartbreaking. You see these characters wrestling with guilt, anger. It's like the whole world is collapsing around them.
And Govind, he realizes that his ambition, his dreams, they might have blinded him to the real dangers lurking beneath the surface.
It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for. Sometimes success comes at a terrible price. And that's where the true weight of those 3 mistakes really hits home.
It's not a Hollywood ending, that's for sure. But it's real, Life rarely ties things up in a neat little bow.
It makes you think about those what ifs. What if Govind had acted differently? What if the riots hadn't happened?
Exactly. It forces you to confront the messy reality of choices and consequences.
And that ending, with Govind dedicating his life to helping Ali.
There's a kind of redemption in that, right? Trying to make amends for the past.
It's not about forgetting what happened. But maybe it's about finding a way to live with it, to create something good out of the wreckage.
And that attempt to reconnect with Ishan shows that even those broken bonds, those deep wounds, maybe there's a chance for healing.
It's like that thread of hope that runs through the entire story. No matter how dark things get, there's always a possibility for something better.
Yeah, Bhagat's really good at capturing those small glimmers of light amidst the darkness, It's what makes his writing so compelling. Like that scene with Ishan bowling to Ali at the end.
Oh, that one gave me chills. It's like a full circle moment, a return to that shared passion that brought them together in the first place.
It's beautiful, but also bittersweet, right? Knowing everything they've been through, all the pain and loss.
And the way Bhagat describes it all, he uses such vivid language. You can practically feel the dust swirling around them, hear the thud of the ball hitting the bat.
Yeah, it's like you're right there in the middle of it, experiencing everything alongside the characters.
It's what makes this story so powerful, so unforgettable. It stays with you long after you finished reading.
Now, here's something to ponder. Throughout the novel, we see how even the best intentions can go wrong. Govind's 3 mistakes, they weren't born out of malice, right? He was trying to do good, but
things spiraled out of control.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, how do we navigate a world where even our good intentions can lead to devastating consequences?
It's a question we all grapple with, I think. How do we balance our desires with the potential for unintended harm? How do we make choices we can live with?
And on a larger scale, how do we as a society confront issues like religious intolerance and political manipulation? These aren't just plot devices in the novel. They're real-world challenges we all face.
It's a lot to unpack, that's for sure. But I think that's the power of a good story. It makes you think, it makes you question, it makes you see the world in a new light.
And ultimately, I think the 3 mistakes in my life reminds us that even in the face of tragedy, there's always a possibility for growth, for redemption, for finding meaning in the messiness of life.
It's a story about friendship, ambition, love, loss. It's a story about being human in all its complexity.
Well said. So to all our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive into the 3 mistakes of my life has left you with some food for thought.
And maybe even inspired you to pick up the book and experience this incredible story for yourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of literature.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive on the long-term effects of growing up with domestic violence.
Okay.
And the book we're going to be looking at is called Invincible: The 10 Lies You Learn Growing Up with Domestic Violence and the Truths to Set You Free.
Okay, sounds good.
So one of the first things that really got me, I was really shocked by this was, UNICEF estimates that 1 billion people alive today experience domestic violence as children.
Wow, that's a staggering number.
It really is a lot.
Yeah.
And this book is going to be looking at a lot of the lies that these individuals often internalize.
Right.
Things like guilt, resentment, sadness, loneliness. And it offers pathways to unlearn those lies and embrace more empowering truths.
Well, it's fascinating how these early experiences can shape our view of the world, right?
Yeah.
And this book, it calls them lies. But what they really are the negative beliefs that we internalize as a result of our experiences.
Right.
And they outline 10 of them. But let's just start with one that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Okay.
Feeling guilty.
Yeah, guilt is a big one. And the book talks about a guy named Martin. And he felt responsible for his parents' neglectful behavior.
Really?
He would actually get ulcers as a kid.
Wow.
From worrying so much about it and just thinking it was his fault that his parents were struggling.
It really shows you how a child's developing mind can lead to these feelings of guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't really have the capacity to understand complex adult situations.
Right.
And especially when there's violence involved.
Yeah.
But luckily, Martin had an uncle and a teacher that would show him kindness, even just in brief interactions.
Yeah.
And this helped him to see that this was not his fault. It wasn't his burden to bear.
It's amazing how these little acts of kindness from adults can have such a profound impact on a child's life, especially when they're going through something so difficult.
Absolutely. And these positive interactions counter the negative messages that they're getting at home.
Right.
And it reinforces that truth that it's not their fault.
Right.
And the book really drives this point home. It's never the child's fault.
Yeah.
That is so crucial for anyone who's carrying that guilt from their past.
Yeah, it's so important to release that and really recognize that kids are never responsible for the actions of adults.
Right.
So let's move on and talk about resentment.
Okay.
The book shares Janine's story, who held a lot of anger toward her parents, especially her father, who was abusive.
Yeah, that's an experience that sadly is not uncommon, right?
Right.
Witnessing that violence, especially from a parent, creates those deep wounds, and it fuels that resentment that can linger on for years.
Right.
It keeps you trapped in the past.
Yeah.
And it really prevents you from moving forward.
Yeah, and I thought it was really inspiring that Janine found a way to tap into compassion and forgiveness.
Wow.
And it wasn't because her father changed or anything, but she had a journey of her own. Her mother was battling cancer.
Oh, wow.
And that gave her a new perspective.
It's like they say, resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die.
Wow, yeah.
So it's really only when we understand that forgiveness is about releasing ourselves from the pain that we can actually move on.
That's a powerful way to put it. So it's not condoning what happened, but it's finding a way to free yourself from the bitterness.
Yeah.
So now the book also looks at sadness, and that's a feeling that is just kind of woven into the fabric of these childhood experiences.
Absolutely.
And the author himself actually shares a kind of touching anecdote about his mom reading Goodnight Moon.
Okay.
And it was a sweet memory, but it's also tinged with sadness because of what was going on in his life at the time.
Yeah. You see, those bittersweet feelings are very common for children who've grown up with domestic violence.
Right.
Happy moments are often overshadowed by that fear and that uncertainty.
Right.
You never know when things might erupt again.
Yeah. The book also shares Fiona's story, and she battled sadness for a long time. But she found some comfort and some solace in volunteering at a children's hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And helping others actually helped her to shift from focusing on her own pain to actually feeling gratitude for what she did have.
Fiona's experience really highlights the transformative power of giving.
Yeah.
Even when you feel like you have nothing to offer.
Yeah.
When we focus on helping others, we shift that perspective outwards. We connect with something larger than ourselves.
Right.
And we start to appreciate the good things in our own lives.
That really resonates with me. There's something so empowering about helping others, especially when you're feeling down.
It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? Giving, even when you feel empty, can fill you up in these unexpected ways.
Okay, let's move on and talk about a feeling that resonates with, I think, so many people, whether or not they grew up with domestic violence, feeling alone.
Yeah, and that feeling of isolation is especially strong for children who've experienced this type of trauma. Their trust is shattered, and it's really hard to believe that anyone could truly understand their pain.
And the book talks about Eleanor, and she, even though she had a loving boyfriend and good relationships with her parents, had friends, she always felt alone. No matter how much support she had, she just couldn't shake that feeling.
Yeah, Eleanor's experience really shows how those wounds of childhood run deep.
Yeah.
Even with support, that feeling of isolation can linger. Mm-hmm. Imagine growing up in an environment where the people who are supposed to be protecting you are the source of fear and uncertainty. It's no wonder trust becomes such a major issue.
That makes so much sense. It's like they're always on high alert, waiting for the other shoe to drop, even in situations that are completely safe.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like their internal alarm system is constantly going off, making it really hard to relax and feel secure.
Right. But the book offers hope. It talks about the story of PepsiCo CEO Indra Nooyi. And she found that, despite her own trust issues, she found that assuming positive intent in her interactions helped her to overcome those barriers.
It's a powerful reminder that we can actively choose to challenge our negative assumptions and open ourselves up to connection.
Right.
Instead of expecting the worst, what if we started assuming the best?
It's a powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And the book emphasizes it all starts with trusting ourselves, recognizing our own strengths and values.
Yeah.
That self-trust then becomes the foundation for trusting others.
So important. Knowing your true nature is key to building that self-trust and then extending that trust outwards.
Now let's talk about anger.
Okay.
It's a universal emotion, but for those who've experienced domestic violence, it can be particularly challenging to manage.
Yeah, and that's because anger is often a surface emotion, masking deeper feelings like hurt or fear, or even just that sense of feeling insignificant.
Right. And we hear Jeremy's story in the book. He witnessed his mother's pain and developed some serious anger issues as a result.
And did he ever talk about the root of that anger? What was it stemming from?
Yeah, he felt like he wasn't big enough or strong enough to protect her, and that fueled a lot of rage.
Makes sense. It's heartbreaking to think about the impact this has on children, you know?
Yeah.
But the good news is that the book doesn't just leave us with these heavy lies.
Right.
It offers real stories of people who have broken free and found their way to some powerful truths.
Right.
And it's not about suppressing the anger or pretending it's not there. It's about learning to harness that energy.
Okay.
And turning it into something positive.
So it's recognizing the anger but not letting it control you.
Exactly.
Okay. The book introduces us to Adam, and he channeled his anger into his career.
Oh, interesting.
And he turned it into a driving force for success, but initially it almost cost him everything.
Wow. So how did he manage to turn it around? What was his secret, I guess?
I mean, it sounds like, Adam's story shows how anger, while powerful, can be really destructive if it's left unchecked.
Yeah.
So it's important to find healthy ways to express it.
Sure.
And for him, that was through his work.
Okay.
He found a positive outlet, and he actually transformed his anger into passion and purpose.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's incredible how he was able to turn something so potentially negative into a force for good.
Yeah. And speaking of tools, I love how the book introduces the DATA acronym as a practical way to manage anger.
DATA.
Yeah. So D, decide what you are feeling.
Okay.
A, ask yourself, what else can I assume about this situation?
Got it.
T, remember the truth. You can redirect anger's energy.
Okay.
And A, apply that energy to your passions.
I love that. It's like taking that raw energy and channeling it into something constructive and life-affirming.
Yeah.
We don't have to be victims of our anger. We can choose to become the masters of it.
Right. So instead of letting anger control us, we can learn to use it as fuel for positive change.
I love that.
Okay, so we've covered guilt, resentment, sadness, feeling alone, and anger. Let's shift gears and talk about a feeling that I think can be really tough to shake.
Okay.
And that is hopelessness.
Yeah, hopelessness is a common feeling for those who've grown up with domestic violence. It's like seeing that destructive side of human nature firsthand.
Right.
Can lead you to believe that things will never get better.
The book shares Chelsea's story, and she witnessed something really horrific. She actually witnessed her dad shoot and kill a neighbor who was trying to protect her mom during a violent fight.
Oh.
I can't even imagine, how something like that could make a person feel.
Yeah, it's crucial to acknowledge the profound impact of that kind of trauma. Experiencing something that intense can completely shatter a child's sense of safety and security.
Yeah.
But Chelsea's story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, we have the capacity for growth and healing.
Yeah, it's like she found a way to rise from the ashes and create something meaningful from her pain.
Exactly. And despite her circumstances, Chelsea found purpose in helping others. She even felt guided towards a higher purpose.
And that brings up, this idea of post-traumatic growth, which the book talks about.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So post-traumatic growth is this amazing phenomenon where people who've experienced trauma can actually emerge stronger.
Okay.
And with a deeper appreciation for life. It's not about forgetting or minimizing the pain, but it's about finding meaning and purpose in spite of it.
Okay. And the book quotes psychologist Stephen Joseph.
Okay.
And he said that post-traumatic stress is a natural process of adapting to adversity, but it's also the beginning of a transformative journey.
Right. It's about recognizing that suffering can be a catalyst for profound personal growth.
Right.
It's about resilience and the ability to find meaning even in the face of immense pain.
And Chelsea's story really, illustrates this perfectly. Even though her external situation didn't magically change, she experienced a powerful internal shift, She went from feeling completely hopeless to believing that she was destined for something more, that she had a mission to fulfill.
And that shift in perspective can be everything.
Right.
Realizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to our experiences.
Yeah.
That even in the face of adversity, we can find the strength to heal and grow.
Okay. So next we have the lie of worthlessness.
Okay.
And this is sadly so common for people who've experienced domestic violence.
Yeah, and feeling worthless is a direct result of the emotional abuse and neglect that often accompanies domestic violence.
Right.
Children are constantly told, either directly or indirectly, that they're not good enough, that they're a burden,
Yeah. And the book mentions Caroline's story, and she actually struggled to share her experiences because she felt like they weren't bad enough to warrant attention.
Oh, wow.
She was constantly apologizing for her feelings as if they were an inconvenience.
It just shows how insidious emotional abuse can be. It erodes your sense of self-worth until you believe that your feelings and experiences are invalid.
It's like you're always seeking validation from others because you don't believe in your own inherent worth.
It's a vicious cycle that can be so hard to break.
Right.
But the key is to remember that your worth is inherent.
Right.
You're valuable simply because you exist. You don't have to earn it.
Yeah.
You don't have to prove it to anyone.
So now fear.
Okay.
Fear. While we all experience fear, for those who've grown up with domestic violence, it can be completely consuming.
Right. Because their childhoods were marked by unpredictability and danger.
Yeah.
They never knew when the next outburst might occur, so they lived in this constant state of hypervigilance.
Right.
It's like their fight or flight response was constantly activated.
Right.
Which can have long-term effects on both mental and physical health.
Yeah. The book talks about how this constant state of stress can lead to anxiety, depression, even physical health problems later in life.
Right. It's almost like their bodies are always in survival mode, even when there's no immediate danger present.
Right. And the book shares Peyton's story, and she's an interesting case because from the outside, she seemed to have it all together. She was beautiful, successful, even competed in beauty pageants.
Wow.
But underneath it all, she was struggling with intense fear and anxiety.
Really?
Yeah.
Peyton's story reminds us that we can't always judge a book by its cover. We never know what battles someone might be fighting internally.
Right.
And for those who've experienced domestic violence, those battles can be especially fierce.
Right. And she mentioned that, seemingly small things could trigger her fear. Mm-hmm. A sudden noise, someone getting too close. It's like she was constantly reliving the trauma of her past.
That's a common symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
Traumatic experiences can be embedded in the nervous system so that even seemingly harmless triggers can evoke that intense fear and anxiety.
But what I admire about her story is that she didn't let fear control her. She used those beauty pageants as a way to confront her fears and build confidence.
That's turning adversity into an opportunity for growth.
Right.
Stepping outside of her comfort zone and facing her fears head on allowed Peyton to reclaim her power.
Right.
And create a new narrative for herself.
And preparation was key for her. She, worked on her singing and public speaking, even how to walk with confidence. It's like she meticulously planned for every challenge so that she'd feel more in control.
That's a great point.
Right.
Preparation can be a powerful antidote to fear.
Yeah.
When we feel prepared, we're less likely to be overwhelmed by anxiety.
Right.
And more likely to face those challenges head on.
And speaking of confidence, the book mentions some fascinating research by Harvard professor Amy Cuddy on power posing.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Have you tried it?
I have. It's amazing how much our physical bodies can impact our mental and emotional state.
Right.
So if you're ever feeling anxious, try striking a power pose for a few minutes.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by the results.
It's incredible. So now on to a feeling I think we all experience to some degree. And that is self-consciousness.
Yeah.
Self-consciousness.
Self-consciousness often comes from a fear of judgment or rejection.
Right.
And for those who've grown up with domestic violence, that fear can be magnified because of those internalized negative messages that they received as children.
It's like you start to believe that you're not good enough.
Right.
You're not worthy of love and acceptance.
Right.
And that shows up in how you see yourself and interact with the world.
It's crucial to remember that attractiveness is about so much more than just physical appearance.
Yeah.
It's about confidence, kindness, intelligence, humor,
Right.
all those qualities that make us unique.
And the book emphasizes, if we're caught up in those lies, feeling guilty, resentful, sad, alone,
Right.
it becomes almost impossible to feel truly good enough, to feel genuinely attractive.
Those negative beliefs distort your self-image, and it becomes hard to see yourself clearly.
Right. The book shares Emily's story, and she really struggled with feeling self-conscious, particularly in her relationships.
Okay.
And it turned out that her mom had also grown up with domestic violence and had low self-esteem, which impacted the kind of partners Emily chose.
Emily's story is a reminder of how these patterns can repeat themselves across generations.
Right.
If you haven't healed from your own wounds, you're more likely to attract partners who mirror those patterns.
Right. It's like subconsciously we're trying to recreate what feels familiar.
Right.
Even if that familiar was hurtful.
Exactly. It's a way of making sense of the past,
Yeah.
maybe even trying to heal it through repetition. But true healing involves recognizing those patterns and choosing partners who support our growth and well-being.
And the book talks about how, our brains are wired for connection. We're naturally drawn to others.
Right.
But if we don't feel worthy of love, we might settle for partners who reinforce our negative beliefs.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's why it's crucial to address those underlying emotional wounds.
Yeah.
When those wounds are healed, we can start making choices that align with our true desires.
Right. Emily's story also shows the impact of, external factors like poverty and social stigma.
Yeah.
Her family struggled financially, and she was often teased about her clothes.
Oh, wow.
Which made her feel even more self-conscious.
Poverty and social stigma can compound the challenges for those who've experienced domestic violence.
Right.
The lack of resources and support, coupled with that potential discrimination and bullying, can further damage self-esteem.
Right. And all of this contributed to Emily actually developing an eating disorder.
It's like she was trying to control something in her life when everything else felt so chaotic.
Yeah.
Eating disorders are often a way to cope with overwhelming emotions and trauma. They might provide a temporary sense of control, but they ultimately lead to more problems.
Right. And it wasn't until Emily saw those same patterns of violence repeating in her own relationships that she knew she had to make a change. It was like she finally realized the cycle had to stop with her.
That's a powerful moment of awakening.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom,
Yeah.
seeing the potential consequences in the lives of those we love before we're ready to make a real change.
And that's where awareness comes in.
Yeah.
Once Emily understood the connection between her childhood experiences and her current struggles,
Yeah.
she could start breaking free.
Awareness is always the first step.
Right.
When we understand why we feel and behave the way we do,
Right.
we can begin to make conscious choices
Yeah.
that are in line with our values
Yeah.
and create a more fulfilling life.
Right. It's about recognizing the patterns
Exactly.
and choosing to do things differently.
It's about empowerment
Right.
and taking control of our lives.
All right. So we've talked about a lot of these really heavy things, but there's one more lie we need to address, and this is the feeling of being unloved.
Yeah. This one really hits deep.
Yeah.
Because, everyone have that fundamental need to feel loved and accepted.
Right.
But for those who've grown up with the domestic violence, it can be so hard to believe that they are worthy of love.
Yeah. It's almost like they've built a wall around their heart to protect themselves from getting hurt again.
Exactly. And while that wall might provide a sense of safety, it also blocks out genuine connection and intimacy.
Yeah.
So they might even push away the very thing that they crave the most.
Yeah, it's really sad. And the book starts this section with kind of a poignant story from the author's own life.
Okay.
And he talks about this memory of his mom reading Goodnight Moon to him.
Oh, wow.
And it was a comforting memory, but it was also a reminder of that inconsistency he experienced growing up, right? Those peaceful moments always overshadowed by the threat of violence.
Yeah, that inconsistency is a hallmark of domestic violence.
Right.
Those shifts between moments of love and moments of fear
Yeah.
creates real challenges when it comes to developing healthy attachment styles.
Right.
It makes it hard to trust that love can be constant and safe.
The book introduces us to Amanda, and she grew up in a home where her parents fought constantly.
Okay.
But there wasn't physical abuse. It was more emotional neglect.
Okay.
And she said she felt like she could survive without feelings or love or anything.
Amanda's story is a reminder that domestic violence isn't always physical, right?
Right.
Emotional neglect and verbal abuse could be just as damaging,
Right.
especially to a child's developing sense of self-worth.
And she became incredibly adaptable. She learned to read the room, adjust her behavior to avoid conflict.
That's common for children in these situations, right?
Yeah.
It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
They become hyper aware of their surroundings,
Right.
constantly trying to anticipate and avoid their parents' anger.
Right.
But this can also lead to a disconnect from their own emotions and needs.
Right.
They're so focused on pleasing others that they lose touch with themselves.
And eventually Amanda realized that this adaptability came at a cost, right? She was missing out on genuine connection, love, intimacy, all those things that make life rich and meaningful.
It's a trade-off that many make without even realizing it.
Right.
But the good news is that we can always choose to change those patterns.
And that's exactly what Amanda did.
Really?
She decided to try something different.
Ouch.
She started giving love and appreciation to others.
That's a beautiful example of taking control of your own happiness. You don't have to wait for someone else to give you love.
Yeah.
You be the source of it.
And what's amazing is the more she gave, the more she received.
That's the magic of giving without expectation.
Yeah.
It's like this beautiful cycle where the love you put out into the world finds its way back to you.
Right. So instead of focusing on feeling unloved, the key is to cultivate love within ourselves and then share it with others.
Exactly. The truth is, you are loved. Love is all around us. It's within us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need to open our hearts to receive it.
I love that.
There's another part of this book that I found incredibly inspiring.
Okay.
The author was working with a company, and he had just met the founder, and they were talking, and he found out that this founder had also grown up with domestic violence.
Really?
Yeah. And that chance encounter led to a conversation about the work that this founder was doing through his foundation called CDV Children of Domestic Violence.
Okay.
And it was a pivotal moment for the author.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time he had shared his own experience with anyone outside of his family.
It's amazing how those unexpected connections can lead to these profound moments of understanding and support.
It was such a powerful experience for the author that he actually created his own foundation called Makers of Memories to provide trips for children who've been through similar experiences.
That's so heartwarming. He wanted to create these opportunities for these kids to experience joy and wonder.
He talks about taking a group of children to Walt Disney World.
Okay.
And they were watching the fireworks show Wishes, and there's that part where a star shoots over Cinderella's castle.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to make a wish.
Uh-huh.
And the author asked the 6-year-old boy sitting next to him, "What's your wish?" And the boy replied, "I wish they would stop hurting each other."
Wow, that just gave me chills.
It's a reminder that even in a place like Disney World,
Right.
these kids are still carrying the weight of their experiences.
Right. And that experience fueled the author's commitment to really address domestic violence. He realized that while creating happy memories was important, these kids needed more than just temporary escapes.
Absolutely.
They needed tools and resources to help them heal.
So what did he do?
Well, he organized a summit of, academics, neuroscientists, researchers.
Wow.
And he wanted to bridge the gap between research and real-world solutions.
That's awesome. It's so important to have that collaboration between the people who are doing the research and the people who are actually working with those affected by these issues.
Yeah, and that summit, that was a turning point because the experts identified these 10 common emotions that are experienced by people who've grown up with domestic violence, the 10 lies that we've been talking about. And they realized that these feelings were often rooted in beliefs that had been internalized during childhood.
Yeah.
And so they recognized that by understanding these patterns,
Right.
they could develop more effective ways to help people heal.
It's like they finally gave a name to those feelings that had been swirling around for so long.
Right.
That validation alone can be so powerful.
Exactly. Yeah. Naming your emotions is the first step toward understanding and processing them. And that summit eventually led to the creation of the Change a Life program.
Wow. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so it's this collaboration between, the Authors Foundation, UNICEF, and some leading scholars.
Okay.
And this program trains adults to raise awareness and deliver these key messages to those who are still living with domestic violence.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's about empowering adults to become agents of change, breaking the cycle of violence, and creating a safer world for children.
It's inspiring to see how one person's passion
Yeah.
can create such a powerful movement,
Yeah.
It really shows the ripple effect of healing.
Right.
When we heal ourselves, we can help heal others.
Yeah. So we've explored these 10 lies and the truths that can set us free. This deep dive has been quite a journey. It's important to remember that unlearning these deeply ingrained beliefs, it takes time and effort.
Right.
But the reward is a life of freedom and authenticity.
The book isn't a quick fix, but it's a guide for that lifelong journey of healing and transformation.
Yeah.
It's about moving from surviving to thriving.
I love that. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, despite the challenges you've faced.
Before we wrap up, I want to share one final thought from the book.
Okay.
The author talks about giving his mother a copy of Goodnight Moon, the book that she used to read to him as a child.
Yeah.
And it was a symbol of their shared journey, a reminder of the love that was always present, even amidst the chaos.
Yeah, like a beautiful illustration of the healing power of forgiveness and reconciliation.
It's a reminder that even the most fractured relationships can be mended, and that love has the power to heal even the deepest wounds.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener?
Yeah.
If any of these stories resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in any of these lies, remember, you are not alone.
You are not alone.
There's hope and there's a path towards healing and freedom.
This book, Invincible, is filled with more stories, insights, and tools to help you on that journey. And the author's organization, CDV, offers resources for anyone affected by domestic violence.
If you feel inspired to learn more or take action, please explore these resources.
As we conclude our deep dive, take a moment to reflect.
Yeah.
What lies have you internalized? What truths are calling to be embraced? And what steps can you take today to move toward a life of healing and wholeness?
Remember, you are not alone, you are loved, and you have the power to create a life beyond your wildest dreams.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.